it's drama.
What then what? Or let's take the view. Let's say that the so-called Tanga wing attend the Mombasa rally. Then what?
The drama ends. It fills out.
They'll find something. You see, this clear attempt to stay.
The issue will be, were they allowed to speak? Remember what happened during the BBI launch at Bomas? Yep.
Certain people
who spoke and who did not speak. It's the same thing that's playing out for the Mombasa rallies.
What I find interesting.
So what the MPs were saying yesterday, Johnson Sakaja, Kanini Kega, and who else was the other person? They were saying
Junet Mohammed.
The leaders of the coast region are the ones who are in charge of this Mombasa meeting. They are the ones who will decide who speaks and who doesn't. So if they decide that only 2 people are going to speak, those 2 people will speak. If they decide that this particular 10 people are going to speak, those 10 people are going to speak.
Yes, even if it is just one person speaking, what I find interesting is here you are for a very distinct period of time. Your rhetoric, the things you're posturing, has clearly indicated that you do not support anything that the president does. In essence, the optics are that you oppose these initiatives of the president. You talk about supporting it, but your actions speak otherwise, as we say. What do you expect? This is politics. You actually expect that you are going to be treated as the poster child who should be welcomed at every gathering, at every meeting.
But of course, and that's why we are attending this meeting, so that we can show you that this rhetoric that you've been spreading around, that we do not support anything that the president does, is false. And that's why we're in this meeting. Yes. And allow us to speak so we can prove to you that we actually support everything that the president does. And all talk about BBI.
Why is it that this is a party issue? Why must it play out in public?
Which party?
It's called Jubilee.
So how is it a party issue? BBI is not a party issue.
No.
BBI is a national issue.
No, the drama that we're seeing, this so-called pro, anti, for, and so forth, they belong to the same party.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's no drama. That's what they keep telling you. You don't hear it, CT, do you? They say that there is no drama.
Actually, the thing is I actually hear it very clearly, and I hear that we are treating you to the same thing we've been treating you from time immemorial. Words. Okay? So please disbelieve what you're seeing. Don't pay attention to what you can actually see with your own 2 eyes.
And hear with your ears.
And hear with your ears. And in fact, your powers of deduction, put them at rest completely. Just listen to what we are telling you. Tall order.
Quite.
This is the kind of political nonsense that we keep experiencing in the country all the time. And the BBI was actually supposed to be healing this and moving us forward. But same is going to happen.
If you ask me, what these rallies have done, they have unearthed what was previously subterranean. These feelings, these sentiments, the thinking that was there but wasn't coming out, it is out.
It is out now.
Yes. Before it was whispers, well, maybe, perhaps. It's now clearly out there.
Yeah.
And by the declaration of the same people who are in the Tanga group, there's an understanding that, this train is going and you're going to be left out. It's a political process. You will be left out.
Well, that's clear, and I think that's why you have. It's obvious. That's why you have now this sudden joining of forces, because they realize that if you don't jump on this train now, you're not going to get a ticket.
Enough.
You're not going to get a ticket.
You have alienated them far enough, and now they're demanding, wait, come on. We are not going to just sit here and watch you alienate us.
Yes, and then there's this proliferation.
Are going to come in.
There's this proliferation of lies, chief of which BBI is not political. Of course it is.
Of course it is.
What else is it?
It's supposed to be.
Our issues that were supposed to be healed were political. So how can the instrument that we keep touting as being the antidote for all this ill will, how can it not be political? It is political. If top of the agenda from what we've been told, Mr. Paul Mwangi was here.
Yep.
Among the things that was clear was the mistrust that the citizenry have on their political leaders and, of course, religious leaders, coming a close second to them. All right? Now, once you have this in the open, it means even the processes that politicians lead are not trusted. And what processes do they lead? They are political.
Directly. Yes.
So when someone tells you, well, BBI is not political, now that's a really huge, massive lie.
Speaking of Paul Mwangi, I've seen that they released a statement yesterday with his joint secretary, Ambassador the ambassador, and they've said that yes, they support the meetings, and they had their first meeting yesterday. Mm-hmm. They are now going to release their timetable of how they want to engage with the public on the ways forward.
My fear of this is that it's already been overtaken by
their timetable will be nothing.
Exactly. It's been overtaken already by what we see. Of course, unfortunately...
Why do you say they've been overtaken, though?
Because, you see, by the time he comes in, this whole flood and wave of all these other political meetings, which are clearly what they are, people then are not going to see the strength or the potency that lies within then this committee of experts and the work that they're going to actually do.
These are rallies that they're holding, okay?
They're
political rallies.
Yeah, people have already gone with the wave.
No, they're not political rallies.
They are political rallies.
They are calling them BBI sensitization
Yes, what
meetings.
they are calling them as opposed to what they actually are. Those are two totally different things. Those are two totally different things.
If you want to understand how this thing is playing out,
when people come out with a 10-page document and call it a declaration, the Kisii Declaration, the Kakamega Declaration. Now we're going to have a Mombasa Declaration. And this is what the people of this region have basically said that they'd like to see in the BBI. Process has been overtaken by events.
No, process.
By the time the Yusuf Haji team comes again to Mombasa, they'll just be given a 10-page document that had been prepared.
Give it a perspective. What you're saying is one, but the other is that the process has been jump-started.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So now there's something to talk about when the BBI team actually gets there. Mm-hmm. Because the only problem is at these rallies, they actually don't talk about BBI.
They don't.
They don't. This is the problem.
They don't talk about it. They don't talk about it at all.
The problem.
It's a politics, and then there's a document that's released, right? So when the Yusuf Haji team goes to Kisii for any meeting or goes to the Nyanza region, it'll be expected that one thing that they're going to pick is this resolution by the people of these 6 counties. And the resolution says this, we support the BBI, we'd like to see these amendments and these changes, which have not been discussed with the people. Now, of course, that statement by Paul Mwangi, it says that they are also sending their members of the technical team to these meetings so that they can sensitize the people. These technical people are not being given an opportunity to speak. So maybe they have a tent somewhere there, like though you have a huge market thing and then you have a tent for people to come and
open accounts
and showcase and open accounts or buy books. It's the same thing that's happening. The BBI people have a tent there.
Just by the way,
if you'd like to know anything about the BBI,
which is why we're here anyway.
Yeah, come and see us if you'd like to know anything about the BBI. Right? So let's see anyway how it plays out.
Speaking of how things play out, we asked ourselves, I think it was on Monday, that we needed to be very clear about what it is that CS Magoha had issue with and the reason why he revoked this appointment. Now we see that Magoha says that VC of University of Nairobi, Kiama, is in office illegally, actually. He says the leadership, or what the nation says, is that the leadership row at the University of Nairobi intensified yesterday as the Education Secretary, Cabinet Secretary George Magoha moved to court seeking to revoke the reinstatement of Professor Stephen Kiama as Vice Chancellor. So yes, we see the back and forth is in full swing. This came as Professor Kiama continued to operate from a temporary office on the 19th floor of UN Towers after Professor Isaac Mbeche, who had been appointed to acting capacity, refused to hand over the VC's office keys to Professor Kiama. However, Kiama will continue to serve as VC with the case coming up for hearing tomorrow before Employment and Labour Relations Court Judge Maureen Onyango. The CS claimed the orders issued on Monday had occasioned miscarriage of justice and insisted that Professor Mbeche would take up the disputed post. Through lawyers Evans Monari, he claimed that the effect of the court orders issued on Monday is that critical administrative functions at the university have been paralyzed because there lies a vacancy in the office of the VC. So, yeah, a mess of epic proportions is now in full swing at the University of Nairobi leadership.
What's interesting here is payment of January salaries for the more than 5,000 University of Nairobi workers hanging the balance because of this leadership row. Who needs to pay? Who signs? This people who need to work is without the VC and the deputy VC in charge of finance. Now, the deputy VC in charge of finance is Mbeche, who is the acting VC. On the other hand, if you look at it from Professor Stephen Kiama's side, He is the VC, and Professor Mbeche is on leave, and there's somebody acting in that capacity. Back and forth.
The back and forth is going to continue. From what we see here.
The courts will decide.
The courts will decide. And the thing is, right now, if anything, I think what happens is that what the court have said, for the meantime, is what needs to carry on. The court have said right now that Kiyama is the Vice Chancellor of University
But
of
if you look at the goings on, politics has come into it now.
Yes, unfortunately.
Students are being involved. The other staff members are being involved.
The Senate.
Wait, this thing is going to take tribal leanings. Just sit and watch. You'll hear,
it's heading down there. Yeah.
It will not be mentioned, but if you look at the players and the divide, clear.
It's already down there.
It's there.
Sonko speak for Deputy Governor given nod for vetting. The County Assembly has begun the process of vetting the Governor's nominee for Deputy. This is after Speaker Beatrice Elachi referred the nomination of Anne Kananu Mwenda to the Vetting and Appointments Committee for consideration with a few conditions. It's in our interest that we have a stable and functioning county government. I wish to reiterate that there is no vacuum in the office of the governor because the current person holding that office is Mike Mbuvi Sonko. That's what she said. And she said, now, this committee, please go and check whether she meets all the requirements, whether she meets the requirements, whether she's been cleared by IEBC, whether she's been cleared by the EACC and all. Right? And also take into consideration whether there are any court cases that have barred us from going ahead to vet. And it led some ODM legislators in their county to walk out of this meeting, saying, there are several matters currently before the courts relating to her. As a party, we refuse to be drawn into discussing a matter that is sub judice, said Minority Leader David Beria.
Yes, this country we're in is actually called Kenya.
Oh, yes.
Yep. And
things happen.
These are Kenyans doing their thing.
Things happen. Meanwhile, when you talk about one county government, let's go to the other one. This is Kisumu. And two candidates will battle it out for the position of the Kisumu County Assembly Speaker after the deadline for submitting applications elapsed yesterday. Campaigns for the seat intensified amid reports that former Speaker Onyango Olo is still fighting to return to his former seat through courts. Clerk of the Assembly, Owen Ojuok, confirmed that only two candidates will be on the ballot. The two are Kisumu North MCA Elisha Oraro and Kenneth Amondi.
What is of interest is that the former speaker does have other court issues, There was the matter of the mall,
Yep.
Which hasn't been settled yet.
Yep.
Yes, so, let him go to court and let's see how that turns out.
Yeah, let's see how it plays out. Today being Thursday, let's wait and see what else is on the nation.
Well, all right. Realign transport parking to improve revenue, the county has been told. Now, of course, we're looking directly at Nairobi. Ward representatives in Nairobi want the executive to realign transport and parking in order to enhance revenue. So, of course, looking at going back to what we had talked about a while ago and said that, is it actually a right or is it something that a county would essentially use to
raise
their revenue streams. It comes after the County Assembly Transport Committee accused the Parking Department of taking over duties of the Transport Department in devolved government, leading to confusion. Surprise, surprise. Parking revenue has been declining for some time now, with the devolved government recording 1.99 billion in 2016-2017. This reduced to 1.8 billion in the next fiscal year and dipping to 1.7 billion in 2018-2019. So apparently, according to the committee chairperson, Joyce Mathoni, she says the two departments should stick to their mandates so that revenue collection can be boosted. There is a need for coordination. So revenue seems to be dipping in Nairobi because of this. And parking is, of course, one of the big money makers in the county. So this is another row now between themselves in terms of who should be doing what.
Hey. Mm-hmm. Okay. Today is Thursday. It's Home and Away. It's a pull-out on the Standard, in the Standard. Home and Away, the property guide. It has a very interesting story here on Kiambu real estate sector. Okay. Slightly over 10 years ago, in October 2009, a 5-storied building under construction in Kiambu town collapsed, killing 17 people. As often is the case at such times, the collapse elicited hue and cry on the safety of buildings in the county. Amid the Dean, the then Kiambu District Commissioner Albert Kimathi was ordered by the government to preside over the preparation of a situational analysis report. Again, as it happens in many similar scenarios, after the noise had died down, Kenyans moved on. The report was completed but was not made public until now. The Home and Away has seen a report that indicates 95% of the multi-story buildings under construction in Kiambu town at the time and its environs had grave architectural faults and posed a major risk to occupants. The remaining 5% that fell short of a 50% rating in safety, meaning that the buildings under construction in the area were a time bomb waiting to go off. 10 years ago, report says all buildings under construction in Kiambu have an issue. One issue or the other. 95% should actually not continue to completion. Report is gathering dust somewhere.
Right, and I think today we also know what would happen with the Kiambu governor, so maybe that will open up.
It won't.
But then again, if the buildings have survived over 10 years.
No, I don't think really that is the plan. These things the buildings aren't put up to survive 10 years. They are put up to survive close to 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 10 years. So if it collapsed on the 12th year, 13th year, 15th year.
If it had grave architectural faults and a major risk to occupants, you would have expected that.
No, not necessarily. Let's take a look at some of the houses that were put up during the colonial era. Many of them are still standing. None have collapsed.
Yes.
They may be in disrepair, but they're still there.
They're still there.
But the reason why they are condemned is because it's understood that at a certain point they are not fit for human habitation. Now, these ones you're being told are unfit for human habitation even before they're completed. Okay? See the fundamental difference. Now, time may lapse, but it's what you call a ticking time bomb. You do not know when it will collapse. Buildings aren't put up so that you can guess when they will collapse. Buildings are put up so that they can last ad infinitum, meaning you live there and the issue of safety doesn't even hit your mind. You just live there. Now, what we're being presented here with is the complete opposite of it. You're starting off with, this thing can collapse.
But City, this being Kenya, you can also look at it from the other side. This committee was compromised. So it basically just produced a report to condemn all these buildings so that they can get something.
That may very well be true, but if you
the fact that they've survived this long and they're likely to survive longer.
It could be that there's nothing wrong with these buildings.
Yeah.
Actually.
Let's conduct a fresh audit on these buildings.
That is a possibility. It is a real possibility.
Kenya.
It is a real possibility that perhaps the developers of these buildings did not play the game they wanted to. Say, okay, we will teach you a lesson. We will condemn your buildings. Yes, that is actually a reality and it's a possibility. But the problem is, if you look at, should we say, the overall underpinning value system that we have in Kenya. Remember, the things that are normally considered as vices have been normalized. It is normal to steal. Call it misappropriation, call it misunderstanding. Normal. It is normal for someone in authority, and it's more or less like you're expected to steal and you're expected to have a lot of money. All right? Now, if we follow that thinking, then what you're saying would actually be a more potent realization that if someone declined to play ball, then they would punish you and say, okay, let's see what you do. So we are the ones who actually determine what is what. We will see. Yes.
Utakipata.
Yes.
The sad bit, though, is that a report was produced through effort and money by taxpayers, and it was never discussed, never actualized. No action was taken.
But you see, the other thing is, since we're talking perspectives, remember when the Precious Talent School collapsed?
Yep.
Did we not talk about a report that had been produced 5 years prior?
Yes.
And this school was among the schools that was mentioned. 5 years. So this one now didn't collapse after 10 years. This one collapsed after 5 years.
Right.
So again, it lends itself to what I was saying, that the possibility is a ticking time bomb. You're more or less waiting for it to collapse. Now, you don't know whether the Precious Talent School, whether it collapsed because, they increased the number of students in every class. So it brought to bear on the very structure that upheld whatever the reason, it collapsed. Whatever reason, it collapsed.
Imagine.
And
reports.
Reports. And this one clearly was an accurate report. And then I'm sure other reports have followed. I'm certain.
Of course. There's a new one. In fact, let me send you to page 28 of the Standard City. Look at the big story there on page 28 of the Standard.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Are you there yet? There you go. There you go. So that story.
Yes.
Read the story.
Okay.
It's saying ailing hospitals that cannot treat the sick. A damning report by the ministry reveals that most public facilities lack basic amenities and essential medicines. This is a verdict of a new report launched by the Ministry of Health yesterday after a study carried out in the past 2 years. The report also established that no public facility had all essential medicines. The Kenya Harmonized Health Facility Assessment notes that just 3 of every 5 health facilities are ready to provide health services. It also notes that half of all the hospitals in the survey lack basic amenities. On average, health facilities have 55% of basic amenities available on the day of the survey, with only 6% of the facilities having all basic amenities.
Oh, by the way, these ones, I mean, if you look at the bullet points that are there, it's even more damning. If you look at the ratio, they say 74 primary public hospitals have no single doctor.
Can you imagine?
That's one. 20, those are doctors available against the required 50, meaning below 50%.
Yes.
Yes. So, yes.
The few counties that have passed the global target of 23 per 10,000 people are Tharaka Nithi, Nyeri, Uasin Gishu, and Nairobi. That's a workforce density, 16 per 10,000. You need to have 16 workers in a health facility per every 10,000 patients.
Right.
This is a new report. It has come out. Took 2 years to prepare. Let's see what happens.
Goodness.
Reports.
Actually, this one you don't actually need to wait. We can tell you what's going to happen.
What do you see happening?
It's just going to gather dust.
Oh, you can already see.
No, this one not see, I know.
Because it basically tells the government, hire more teachers, equip these hospitals.
If you have a situation where there's a constant and perennial complaint about there being inadequate doctors, number of doctors in hospitals, and yet you have a situation where there are doctors who cannot find employment, immediately you realize we have a problem. We are producing them, we can't employ them.
Why?
We have a glut of 300,000 trained teachers, according to the TSC, unemployed. Yet schools lack enough teachers. You know, this is a story that we can continue telling, and we must continue telling, because the reality of these anomalies have to be spoken of, because they are anomalies. And then you look at what else we are spending money on. Why are we fighting to reduce flowers and snacks within the ministries? Why? Just remove, not reduce, remove it.
Remove them.
Remove it. Eat at home. And then come to work. Yes, if you feel you can't eat at home, you're paid a salary. Budget so that you can buy some food to eat when you have a break.
And these mandazis are not given to everybody anyway. It's just some senior people.
No, it's utter nonsense.
It is actually.
You don't have to.
The life of the project.
This is the money that's needed to go somewhere. And then you look at how much money has gone into corruption.
And you know that when you start thinking about it, I usually just start by getting a headache.
Imagine. The report brings out the dire need for diagnostic equipment, with only 1 in 5 health facilities having the necessary. This is coupled with lack of essential drugs. This means the mean availability of essential medicines was 44%, and none of the health facilities had all essential medicines available on the day of the survey. Big 4, health, universal healthcare. Now, here we are. We have a report that's basically saying, look, facilities cannot handle our current state.
Remember when we had the Secretary General of the Union?
Of the Doctors' Union.
Yes, doctors. And one of the things that he clearly, categorically told us was this, that when doctors go on strike, it's not even this.
It's not about their salary.
No. The environment in which they work makes it impossible for them to discharge their duties.
Yes. And this is it.
So it's frustrating.
This is it.
Here you are, you're trained, you know what to do, but you can't simply because you have not been enabled. So you wonder, what on earth am I doing here?
You don't have diagnostic equipment.
Basic.
You don't have medicine.
Basic.
You don't have
Yeah,
gloves.
essentially
Basic,
not- yeah,
basic,
some
basic,
basic things that should be
basic,
taken
basic.
care of. And this is why then in the light of the UHC, especially with the UHC around the country, it's actually a bit... you get a bit jittery, because how are we going to be able to carry out such a project when there are basics that we do not have in place? And this is where it says the horse and the cart story. Yeah.
But remember, just when you thought it was safe to get out of the water, the issue of NHIF reared its head.
Completely.
Yes. So and then NHIF was a key pillar in supporting the UHC program.
Let's see what happens to this report. Just like all the other reports, it's 6:30. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Just one subscription fee. You can choose either weekly, monthly, or quarterly, or annually. Then you get to access all of the Standard Group publications, including the pullouts. Today's pullout is Home and Away, the one that looks on the real estate sector. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM, Malindi.
All right, for a Thursday morning, we already have things that are a bit crazy at around about 6:30, Mombasa Road and Thika Road today. We have traffic all the way from the Gateway Mall on Mombasa Road. Inbound is quite something to behold. There is also traffic all the way past the Utali Drift on Thika Road this morning, and it is chock-a-blocked. Really, it is bumper to bumper, and trying to get out of there right now you can't, because you're just going to have to stick with it as you're trying to get into the city. Coming off Langata Road and Gong Road right now, not so bad. It's probably going to build up as we go along. Westlands coming out of Wayaki Way, not so bad right now, but likely to build up. So if you haven't left early, now would be the time to leave. If you're trying to get out before then we hit traffic hour proper. So it's not much apart from what we already know. We can use the southern and eastern bypasses off Mombasa Road for now, if you're trying to at least get to town quickly and then onwards. So let's see what it looks like in a short while. Don't forget, you can let us know on Spice FM KE on Twitter, or give us a call on 0719 012 600.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Let me try and imitate that guy's voice. 87.9 Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri. City is chill. It's okay, I'm here. 97.7 in Malindi. The live stream is on at Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, Spice FM KE YouTube, and we are also on Instagram, and we are broadcasting as well on our website www.spicefm.co.ke. This is from Nairobi to the world. People who are tuned in this morning. There's somebody who's tuned in from Lebanon. Mary Bayer is saying, "Good morning, I'm tuned in from Lebanon." Say hello to Carlos Goshen, that man who's come there from Nissan.
The escape artist.
The escape artist.
Yes.
Top story today on all the newspapers is we have a centenarian.
Yes, we do, and alive and kicking from what we see. Charles Jonjo turns 100 years old today, and he's been called, amongst many things, the ultimate power broker. He was there when Jomo Kenyatta took power. He worked with Mboya to tame Jaramogi, as it seemed, cleared the path for Moi, and helped Kibaki jump the queue. Then he fell on his sword, apparently. He turns 100 today. No other Kenyan has ever had such strong influence on government and politics. And from all looks, from all indicators, the man is still going strong.
Oh, yes. He was in Uganda the other day, over the weekend. Photos were released. He was tracking, what are they? Gorillas.
They're called gorillas.
Yes. I was about to say
animals.
baboons.
The bigger cousins.
The bigger ones.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
Huger
tracking
cousins.
gorillas in Uganda.
Yeah, it's interesting because here he was when the Madaraka government was named in 1963. Njonjo was appointed as the first the first Attorney General, and it was the start of a remarkable phase of his life. He influenced every major legal and political decision happening in Kenya for decades, clearly, when you think of Kenyan politics throughout. Interestingly, since independence and even before that, he has been present. He's been influential. Every leader at every turn had a touch of Njonjo, if you want to put it like that. And here he is, has marked 100 years, and yes, still going strong.
What is of interest is the things that he helped shape, the direction. One could argue that this man was very instrumental in shaping the direction this country took to the present. And to understand it, you need to go back. We've mentioned this very studio issues that had to do with succession politics. See, I mentioned succession politics because that's what this BBI and all these things we're talking about. It's succession politics that has brought this thing to the fore. You have a president whose term is coming to an end, and there's the question of what next. There was a question of Uhuru's father, and the issue was more to do with his health, given his age. And there was some serious talk. And the person who is credited with having maneuvered in that particular space, and who is actually credited by many to having maneuvered it so that the then vice president was actually able to actually move and become the president of the country. But in addition to that, there are very, very many issues that pertain to the law. Remember, the gentleman was the Attorney General for the longest time possible. And the Attorney General of the time, I think it was one of the most powerful positions anybody had in this country. Now,
It was the law.
Yes, this is where now the personality of an individual comes into play. Because I am sure that even when some other people took over from him, the very laws or the very statutes that governed the office were still in place. But they never had the same powers as this particular as this one gentleman had. But then again, if you look at the associations he had, you see, if you study during the times that he studied, other people who studied with him were Munyo Ayaki, Masinde Muliro, same time, different places. Now, of significance is this. Look at where he studied, UK, South Africa. Now, one of the people he studied with when he was in South Africa was the first leader of independent Botswana, Seseret Sekama. So, why do I mention this? I mention this because when you talk about the continent coming into their own realization of independence, very many people who were then at the helm had a certain commonality. People had gone to school together, they had met at some point. So communication within the continent was eased by this.
They had a network.
Now, the advantage we had, I think, is that someone who had lived in the UK, and our first president had, and someone who had studied, these are people who actually understood the minds of our colonizers. And they knew how to maneuver and to work with them. Now, there's
Some could also say
Yes.
that the colonizer also knew how to maneuver
precisely. But
and work
therein comes the debate, Eric.
and play with these people.
Remember, there's always been the story of the people who are considered collaborators.
Yes.
And that is considered in the worst possible light. And those who were the opposition. But people could argue that a collaborator was actually a visionary. They looked, they saw. And time actually bore them witness, because if you consider people who subscribed to the Christian faith, it means they also went to school.
Yes.
Now, with the exit of the colonialists, guess who was able to fill in those shoes? People who had gone to school.
People who had gone to school, exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
And that advantage continued. It didn't wane. It continued.
Now, what I was saying is that those who've argued before that, you see, the people who had lived and worked with the Mzungu, living in the UK, working very closely with the Mzungu, and Njonjo worked in the state law office before independence. Jomo Kenyatta had lived in the UK for long.
Yes.
He had many relations with the Mzungu. When it came time to independence, after independence, and nurturing the new nation, there was still playing the colonizers' tune. And then he said that, there was neo-colonialism came now from this point. that yes, these people were still being influenced by the colonial masters because they had worked with them, and the colonial master had learnt very well how to manipulate these people. So when you have someone like the Charles Njonjo in the Attorney General's office, you have the President Jomo Kenyatta as the head of the country, the head of state, basically just saying that a call can just come from London and say, "Hello, my friend."
Sounds more American than English. but
Whatever,
nonetheless.
yes. And they have this conversation.
If that is the case, then we would say that the colonizers were very smart people. They made sure that this system that they had started had continuity.
Yes.
Ask yourself a simple question. It was also said and reported that around the time when it was clearly understood that Mandela had to be released, one of the people who was closest to him was his jailer. The individual, the one jailer, white of course, who supposedly was supposed to ensure that his welfare was looked after. This is a man who, even when he was released and he became president, he would invite him to state functions.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? When you have such a person close to you, this is the person who more or less represents the people who had been your oppressor. But he's the one who's kind to you. He's the one who treats you well. So you cannot now go and blame the entire community. No.
Could also be Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, it could be.
Yeah, you've basically just fallen in love with your oppressor,
Yes,
and you've seen like he's your closest buddy.
yes. Because he treats you well.
Yeah. 'cause he
After
treats you
a
well.
whole period of ill treatment. Again. But what is for sure is that Jomo Kenyatta lived in the UK, 17 years, a rule of 17 years? That's a long time.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
You become inculcated in that culture.
You will understand it.
them
Yes,
in and
you
out.
do. You do understand.
And you have friends in high places.
Yes, and that is why it becomes very, very easy for you to actually manage and understand. You see, it was an advantage. And that's why there was continuity. Now, this continuity has also been criticized because it has been said that all we did was we changed one colonizer for another. I don't subscribe to that particular view, really. No. And for this reason, if you understand the development of any world or any culture, very rarely have they developed without the infusion of other cultures. Very rarely. There has been a mishmash. Other people come in, other people have their influence, other people have their way of doing things. And it's in learning and understanding these variances and differences that brings about that progression that we speak
That
of.
we speak of.
The best example one can give is America. It's a proper mishmash.
Oh, yes, it is. I mean, it's a melting pot of cultures from all over the world. They themselves, who really is American when you want to look at it? And then-
Predominantly European.
Exactly. So predominantly, and specifically Europeans from Britain, the Great
And
Britain.
France.
Everybody else came after that.
They did.
And then you had people from, interestingly enough, all over the world then came in and then became
They did.
Americans, from Africa to Asia to Eastern Europe to Western Europe. You have German Americans, you have French Americans, Italian Americans, Chinese Americans. I mean, it goes without.
Polish Americans.
Everybody then became
Russian Americans.
Yeah,
Mexican Americans.
Exactly.
And the natives were forgotten.
The natives were
course.
forgotten. At some point, even they tried to expunge them. And
Not
they
tried, it
actually-
was
and
a
they
policy.
actually- They succeeded.
It
So
was a policy of extermination.
Get rid of them.
Policy.
Wipe them out.
Yes. Not assimilation.
no,
extermination.
not assimilation at all.
Extermination.
Right.
Yes.
Looking at John Joe, it's actually interesting that it says here, and I just thought about the way in which he used to operate vis-a-vis what we see today. Under John Joe's watch, if the law did not exist to support what the government wanted to do, one would be made overnight. As in today, tomorrow.
What do we need?
What do we need?
We
This
need
is not
not-
working?
this is okay.
Okay, come, sit down. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
That was, for example, the case when after the 1974 elections, a law was quickly crafted allowing the president to pardon an election offender so that he could participate in an election in case the courts barred him from an election due to such an offense. The objective was to save Kenyatta's friend Paul Ngei, whose election for the Kangundo parliamentary seat had been nullified on grounds of breach of election laws. So there would be something that could be done really quickly that could protect you in the future. And it was interesting that under John Joe's watch, this is what came into being. Now, looking at how that could be brought about today, probably it's not. We see that certain things cannot be put in place with the speed and alacrity with which they were done then.
It was a one-party state.
There you go. So it was one party, and a lot of
So-
times represented by one man. So look, man, if this is not working, let me fix it
you know,
today
this
so that
thing,
we can have progress
it
tomorrow.
wasn't difficult.
No.
Pushing people into a corner and having them, because Parliament are the ones who actually brought it into law. So it's getting them together, telling them what to do, where to jump off, not difficult.
Not hard at all. Mzee amesema.
Not only that, this gentleman had the powers to gag.
Oh, yeah, he could.
There were individuals who it became illegal for them to speak in public.
Talk. Leave alone how Museveni says in Uganda, you may not walk from point A to point B. Here
No,
it
this
was,
one is-
don't even open your mouth,
Don't
my
open your
friend.
mouth. Nyamaza.
So we can do something about that too.
Nyamaza. But it was instrumental. It was important for him to do some of these things that he was doing.
But I
Like
think-
you've said, CT, the president was in ill health. He was old. There were people who were thinking that the president is not completely aware of what's happening around him. And then there were the vultures that were, hurtling around and flying around, waiting to capitalize on any opportunity. So we can say that he held the country together.
He was in charge.
He was in charge. He held it by saying that, no, listen, there's a law on succession. This is how things shall go. And
The one thing, again, people have claimed, again, this is not positively speaking, that he had Anglophile leanings, meaning he was more of a Mzungu than an African. Okay, and some go forth to say, well, he married a Mzungu. Well, I mean, these people who say this, who prevented them from marrying Mzungus?
they didn't come across one.
Well, look, there are very many. You only need to look. But the thing is, in the same vein, he was one of the most tribalist people you could actually come across.
It's interesting that you say that, because at some point, I think it was recorded that he actually tried people to get the country away from these tribal leanings.
Not tried.
Yeah.
Oh,
he put it into
practice.
legislation
Oh.
and practice that we will not go tribal. But he was one of the most tribalist.
Gema,
leaders.
as we knew it, had a problem with Njonjo. It's Kenyatta. He actually asked the group. It's Njonjo. It's the president who actually now brought it back into being, because it was tribal. In those days, football clubs were named after the ethnic area they came from.
Kikuyu United. Or
Yes,
like
or
such things.
Abaluya United Football Club or
Abaluya
Abayingo
Football
or
Club.
whatever it is. People had to change. That's AFC Leopard from Abaluya Football Club. AFC Leopard.
Yeah, remove this tribe.
And
They
he was.
Oh, no, he didn't
He was
joke.
the one who was behind all of this and said, "Stop all of these tribal affiliations that you have."
He
but
didn't
then
joke
seemed to
about
be
this
one of
thing.
the most tribalist.
How?
This is what you said. This is what
No,
I'm asking.
no, I'm saying tribeless.
Okay, tribeless.
Less.
okay. I was trying to reconcile.
Not tribeless. No, I'm saying it was tribeless.
Yeah, because this
It was
is
vision, and it was important.
this is
for,
what
for,
struck
for
me
that
about
to
him.
happen.
Even reading about him before I came to understand who he was and understand Kenyan politics, that he was one of the ones who said, look, this tribe thing from time has always been harping on this thing that we cannot go the tribal way. And he stands out as the one who pushed for this.
Actually, what is of interest is that he actually became the champion of the minority white community in Kenya and Asian.
Yep.
He would speak out. You see, whatever else one says, he's a man who didn't find it difficult to make a stand. No, he took a stand
And his stand was
And he
clear.
wasn't afraid to say
and he
it.
stood by the stand.
He was arrogant on his stand. It's just completely fierce. This is what I believe in. This is what I stand for.
and he didn't budge.
For example, the East African community. Njonjo first proposed in Parliament in 1975 that the community should be disbanded for failing in its work.
You know that one?
In 1977, the community eventually collapsed. Njonjo is reported to have tossed with Bruce Mackenzie in celebration of the demise. They thought that the community was dragging Kenya's economic growth behind. Took a stand. Clearly said, look, this economic thing, we are so far ahead, and then the Ugandans and Tanzanians are dragging us back. It's failed. Forget about it.
Actually, there are people who actually blame him for the collapse. I've never actually understood that, and I still don't understand what we hope to gain. If you are part of an economic bloc and your economy is stronger, you stand to benefit more. Because, for instance, since we're calling it an economic bloc, it means you will be the giant in manufacturing in that region.
Yeah.
You'll be the giant.
You have access to markets.
Thank you. why would you want to disband this thing? Because it's actually a goose. This one is not just a goose that lays a golden egg. It's a golden goose that lays golden eggs. Why would you want to disband it? I've never actually understood this.
I've never understood it.
Yes.
It appears like he was thinking, because his argument was that the community was dragging Kenya's economic growth behind. So maybe he was thinking, because we had a common everything.
Yes.
Common harbors, common railway, common airline, common tax collection agency. That means that our
Common
money,
post office.
common post office, which means that everything that we are doing here is also our money is also going into developing other areas.
Yes.
So
and
our revenue, because we are the ones who are actually contributing the most in this to this revenue, we are the ones contributing the most. We are working hard, and our money is going to develop another country.
yes and no. Look at the power that America has amassed from being the person who contributes, or the country that contributes most in certain things. They have the biggest say. Again, the logic or the argument that is put across by people who report that, again, it doesn't, to me, it actually still doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense to me is the political angle. And that is, when you have political power divided into three, it means you have to consult three forces before you arrive at a decision.
Yes.
So it means it also whittles your own power. But if you have your own power based in your own country, then of course your power is more. That's how I would see it, from a purely political perspective.
He saw it different, and he was very, very vocal against this. He was like, this thing is not working for us. It's not. 75 to 77, he said, this thing is not working, and of course it collapsed. And there are those who say that because he started this crusade, this is why this community ended up collapsing. So we've tried to revive it, even after it being revived. In this new wave of it being revived, Charles Njonjo had still spoken out against it and said, this East African community thing, forget about it. Kenya, forget about this East African community. He has said it.
He said it then, and now ask yourself,
even now, he still
look at-
says
he
it.
still says
What I find interesting, if you look around the world, people are always trying to create common markets. What is the EU?
Oh,
The same.
At the end of the day, it's a common. It's essentially a common market.
The Southern Africa have theirs, Western Africa
Commercial,
has
SADC,
one,
Yes.
the
ECOWAS,
Caribbeans have theirs.
the north of the Americas have
We were
theirs.
ahead of all these people. Ours came long before any of these others came into being.
He was the first Brexit guy. In fact, he and the other Brexit people would actually sit and have a very nice
Actually, I
conversation.
hadn't thought of it in that light.
10 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues. We are looking at the top story. Charles Mugabe Njonjo turns 100 years today. Good morning.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. 87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa. 96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So we've talked about the rise and the glory days of Charles Njonjo. Let's talk about the downfall of Charles Njonjo. What happened, City?
That's politics. Whenever you have a struggle for power, it manifests itself in the oddest of ways. And one of the things that played out after President Moi came into power, and immediately after there was a coup attempt, there are those who say 5 years after Moi came into power, it's after the 5 years and after the coup attempt that people saw what they call the market change, and the man they had known as Moi changed and stopped being the person that they had seen him to be in the past. There are those who say that. But remember, if we talk about the role that has been reported as being the role that Charles Njonjo played in the ascendancy of President Moi to power, it meant that, well, he's been referred to correctly as a power broker, but power brokers are also power centers. Now, political power doesn't work that way. There's usually just one center of power. You can't have 2 or 3 centers of power. And I say that whatever is called or whatever is referred to as the problems that the former Attorney General had, the former Minister for Constitutional Affairs had to do with that political power. If you looked at what played out, his accusations as trying to overthrow the government, trying to, all that, whichever account you look at, that thing was choreographed. It was too smooth. It fell into place in ways that you wondered, wait, this movie hasn't been crafted well.
But why such a big sword to be placed on his head? Why?
He wasn't a man you could just sack
It's just
easily.
what, 2.5 years after he oversaw the ascendancy of the the vice president
Yes,
to president.
but bear in mind, someone like Njonjo had enemies even when President Kenyatta was alive.
Yeah,
Now, when that president was no longer alive, you think those enemies had gone away?
of course not.
Yes, exactly.
But you'd expect that one of his closest allies and his very good friends would be the president.
This is politics. And one of the things that we have seen with political friends is that what follows what had been envisioned is a fallout.
No permanent friends or enemies.
Just take your pick. Take your pick. Let's look at Museveni and his group of NRA when they came into power. Look, immediately he came into power. Give it a couple of years, they started disagreeing.
Yes.
Look at, let's go to Rwanda.
Same.
This isn't something new. These things, in politics, it happens.
Jaramogi and Mzee, same.
Same. So this isn't something that is new to politics. Now, how do you get rid of someone like this who has been in politics for that length of time and who has been in government for that length of time? Yes, sack him. This person has friends. This person has acolytes. This person has people. He has brought up the system. To get rid of him, you need to get rid of an entire generation of people who probably owe an allegiance to him. So what do?
Go to war.
Yes, you paint him in a light that people look at him and say, oh, it's not that you get rid of him. This man wanted to overthrow the government. You bring in an interesting element. It's called treason. Okay? Now, you don't take it the full hog. You more or less forgive him because as a president, you have the prerogative to
forgive.
Yes. But essentially, you have diminished his power.
So basically, what happened is that he was accused of treason. He was
Primarily.
He was the man behind the attempted coup of 1982.
No. They
Not that particular one.
No, not that particular one.
Oh, another one.
This was a
An
completely
unmentioned one.
different one. Yes, that they were trying to bring ammunition.
unmentioned, they was trying
yes,
to-
and there was a guy called Mudhemba who was supposed to
Yes.
be Jonjo's cousin. And that saga, even as you read it, it didn't make sense. That's what I was saying. It wasn't well crafted.
Yes.
Yes, there were too many ifs and buts. Okay?
And then there was a public inquiry.
That is when Justice Cecil Miller was brought in to lead that particular inquiry.
Yeah.
Now, that inquiry was one of the most interesting, the most dramatic things you could ever come across. You wondered, goodness gracious me.
What's going on here?
It was like, okay, this is the result we want. Now, let's
How
fill
do
in,
we get there?
Yeah, let's fill in the gaps let's fill in the gaps as we move
As we
along.
move.
Yes. People came and accused him. People came and said this. People came and said this. And I saw this. In the end, he no longer had his job. And secondly, the whole charade was to ensure that his power was diminished. Not that he lost his job. Someone can lose their job.
But they're still powerful.
We have
and
proved
influence
Raila
you.
Odinga doesn't have a job you can speak of or didn't for the longest time, but still very powerful. You don't actually need a job to be powerful. Now, that's what they were doing. They wanted to make sure that anyone who was aligned to him would come to the realization that being around this man can be dangerous to my health. It's actually in my... And people did take off. A few people remained by his side.
So he was isolated, basically.
He was isolated.
And at the end of all that, the president forgave him.
Pardoned.
Pardoned him, yes.
him.
Yes, he did.
Never spent a night in jail.
No, he never was. You were actually never going to spend a night in jail. And as politics goes, I am sure, I don't have evidence of this, but I'm sure they later made up and they probably would talk.
Yeah.
They had known each other for a long time.
They became buddies, I'm sure.
Yes.
Charles Njonjo was asked to write a memoir or even an autobiography, and he said, never.
I have nothing to say.
I have nothing to say. I will go with everything to my grave. Not a single book. You know, these are the people that you say, write something. It's 7 o'clock. Good morning.
And everything I
spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, let's look at how things have evolved on the roads this morning. Not looking so good on Mombasa Road, unfortunately, because we have traffic all the way from just before the turnoff to the JKIA, and it's heading all the way down until General Motors. And this means that it's going to be very slow heading out today. The service lane towards Muthaiga is very slow at almost 7 o'clock today. Very, very slow. And then, of course, trying to join Thika Road is going to be a headache because that is not moving either. Coming off Jogger Road this morning, we don't have so much of an issue like we did yesterday. As you approach the City Stadium roundabout, then heading into the CBD, using that option is not so bad. You can also use the southern and eastern bypasses today to get where you are going. All right. Right, so Mombasa Road, Thika Road is where we have a bit of a headache right now. Langata Road and Gong Road doing all right. Let's skip over to Mombasa. We're in the city and then heading out towards Mariakani is very, very slow this morning, and people complaining that they can't get out of town. Of course, this is normal Thursday morning traffic, of course, trying to head out towards and coming in from the SGR. And so that hopefully will clear up in a short while. We'll keep you updated as much as we can. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. We'll look at Kisumu and let you know what's going on there. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
Kenya's biggest conversation. Broadcasting in Nairobi, 94.4. We're in Mombasa, 87.9. We're in Kisumu, 102.5. In Nakuru, 96.0. In Eldoret, 96.7. 90.9. Nyeri, Malindi, 97.7. Tune into the live stream on Spice FM KE Facebook, Spice FM KE YouTube and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. As we say good morning and happy birthday to Charles Mugane Njonjo, let's also now come to our next topic of the day, which is our education sector. We'll be joined shortly by the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET. This is the one that's appearing to be favored by TSC over Wilson Sosion's outfit.
I don't think it's a question of being favored. It's the TSC have been in this game for the longest time, and the fact that you have two unions is a perfect situation for you. If one seems to be giving you a headache, appear to favor the other. If KUPPET were giving them a headache, I'm sure
let's switch
to NAT. You'd say, we'd argue that those who would say they are favoring NAT, they are not. It's playing one union against the other.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the second week after secondary schools opened, right? And we've been seeing education CS Professor Magoha going around the country, and he's basically championing. This is the second year where they want 100% transition. Everybody who sat for KCPE last year must join Form 1 this year, right? So he's going around and finding schools and asking, so who's supposed to be here? How many have you admitted? Why don't you have 100% here, that the people who had been admitted to your school? And they're told, this one has not come. We don't know why.
Well, this is I think here, right here, we have a classic case of what happens when you make these, should I call them edicts or these pronouncements without looking at what is needed to actually have these things come through. It is, I don't even know what to call it, that we have a situation whereby, okay, it sounds great on the face of it, right? All of these students...
There was no need to make that pronouncement to begin with.
Because here
what
we are...
What was the pronouncement for?
here we are, because it sounds good,
Just
right?
to ensure, it's just basically to ensure that everybody has access, because it's
Okay,
a
but-
constitutional right of every child to get basic education.
Now, this is what I'm saying. You want to base it on the Constitution and say it's a right of everyone to have access to
Yes.
education, which is true. Fantastic. And I think he also knew that. But I think we're coming from this pronouncement, it was to give some kind of assurance to the country, for parents, for students, that yes, everybody is going to be able to go to school. However, there's certain things that needed to have been put in place before you say something like this. Because what do we have now? We have thousands of children who are actually not in school, not because they
Not
don't.
thousands,
Out of a million,
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, those are still
It's not-
thousands. Those are still thousands.
No.
Okay.
Thousands is before you get to
Is
tens of
before-
thousands and
Right.
then hundreds of thousands.
Okay,
Yes.
so and the reasons being that in terms of capacity of these institutions, there is not enough. The classrooms are not enough, number one. Number two, you have students who would like to enter into secondary school, but this is a big situation that we have now,
Yeah.
are not able.
but is
to
that the reason why
afford
those
it
hundreds of thousands are not in school? Is that why they have not reported?
because they don't have
Because there are no classes. Have they gone there and they've been told, now, we don't have a desk, we don't have any space for you, go back home? That's not the reason. They basically haven't turned up.
Why haven't they turned up?
Now that's a question. You cannot tell me that the reason why they have not gone to that school is because they're looking and thinking, hey, there are too many
No, but I
students.
think there's a mix and
That
match
school
of
is full.
there's a mix and match of reasons that yes, they say that go, but there is no space.
You forget that sometimes
There's no space.
you don't have the wherewithal to go.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That was going to be the number two. That you have somebody who is living in wherever, Kakamega, and then has been given a space in a school in
in
Kitui.
Wundanyi.
okay. Number
Yeah,
one.
no,
okay,
that's nice
there.
and far.
One, they may, and it sounds like something so basic, but some people don't have the wherewithal to get there in terms of transport, put it together, then to be able to go. Truly. Parents, in some cases, parents are working and then they would leave their work to basically transport their children to school. Something as basic as the wherewithal is lacking for a lot of people. And another case that we've seen is that schools are actually full. Full. They're to the brim. Capacity, finish. And we're still being
No
asked
desks.
to... No
Oh,
desks.
Hold. Are there trees?
You can study outside.
You can
Yes,
study
you can.
outside, sit under the tree
Or
and
in
study.
fact, when you bring your child, come with a desk,
Come
Yeah.
with your
come
own.
with a bed.
This thing of saying come with the mattress, now come with the desk.
Be-
Come
Yes.
with it. This is. We're going to get to that point. That this is
Oh,
what
no, we
people
got
are going
there.
to be asked
A long time
to
ago.
do.
You think we got there? Yes, we did.
A long time ago.
Oh, yes, we did.
So this thing of saying 100% transition, you see,
It sounds very nice on the face
no,
of it. It
Ndu,
sounds nice on the
when
face of it.
President Kibaki took over in 2002 December, he said starting January, in fact, in less than a month, he said next month, January, everybody go to school, primary.
And they did.
And they did. We had the same complaints coming out. Oh, we don't have facilities, we don't have the capacity. Teachers' unions were up in arms saying we don't have enough teachers to go to school. This thing is going to flop.
Somehow they did it.
It happened.
So are we? What I hear you saying is that then there's a reluctance to actually have this thing
No, I'm
done.
just saying that the thing of saying that the government had not planned enough. Sometimes we don't need to plan enough. Sometimes you just need to say go.
Eric,
Just jump in, and if you
Go
sink or
and
swim, then
let's find out what.
Eric,
Let
the
us
assumption is that
stress
there was
test
no
the
plan.
system. That's the assumption actually, but there must have been a plan.
Why don't we welcome our guest, Eric?
He's in the studio now. Good morning, Akelo Misori.
Good morning.
He's the
Good
Secretary
morning.
General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. Karibu sana, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Sasa hii kupet, does it mean, according to the name,
nothing
it's-
like jumping right in.
Yes, straight up, right?
Yes.
Does it mean that you only represent secondary school teachers?
We represent teachers in post-primary institutions,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily secondary school teachers. They are teachers in technical schools, teachers in teachers training colleges, and secondary schools, yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Karibu sana, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Of course, you can watch this interview as it happens on Spice FM KE Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter. We are also live streaming on Spice FM KE YouTube and our website www.spicefm.co.ke. Akelo, you have in the recent past been talking about this 100% transition of the order by the government. This is the second year that it's being rolled out. 100% transition from primary to secondary schools. What are your views on it so far?
First, let me just say that it is a landmark stage in Kenya's education development. That for the first time, we have got everybody attending secondary education. That is a plus. But of course, there are challenges which are bedeviled this kind of arrangement, because we did not focus on key areas. That did we check that the infrastructure is there sufficient to support the program? Do we have the teacher numbers to support the program? Because if you are encouraging everybody to go to secondary schools, you are not just having a transition where people are leaving one stage to another without compromising certain very significant aspect of education, that is quality.
So, you
So that's the only challenge which has made it clumsy.
So there was no plan in place per se? Because if we're looking at infrastructure, that's major when it comes to education. We're looking at teachers in terms of numbers. That's also critical when it comes to education. Are these not things that would have been taken into consideration before the pronouncement was made that there will be 100% transition?
You know, global trends have always come up with agitation to have access to education and basic education for this matter. But one thing is now, why do you have education? Education must also feed into the economy of the country, the social aspect of the country and so on. So when you want everybody to go to school and you don't prepare adequately for that, then it means that preparation to have quality was not part of the political mindset in coming up with free education. Yes. And 100% transition.
Are you saying that the unions were not involved, for example, or had a conversation with the government, with the ministry? This is the second year. Before it was rolled out that let's have 100% transition from primary to secondary, were the teachers' unions never involved in these preparations and conversations?
The key important factor in this rollout could have been the government, the parliament approving this. And once the parliament approved, we could only come in to ask very significant questions. That do you have preparedness to roll out 100% transition? Like it obtains currently, you'll realize that the reason for which we are saying teacher numbers, infrastructure, you find some schools having classrooms which appear like political rallies or baraza. So that's the challenge. That is when the teachers now, like the unions now, came in to ask that, according to the acceptable standards, we should have at least a teacher ratio of maybe 1 to 40. If it is that too bad. Otherwise, 1 to 25, between 1 to 25 and 135 would be the standard norm of having a school or a class where a teacher has control, that the learners have got direct contact with their teacher, and the facilitation of learning can be guaranteed. Are you getting this? But currently, like for example, I've just come from Homa Bay, and I passed through Kisii yesterday. And Kisii school, which was built to accommodate just about 600. The number of Form 1s are more than what the school was destined to have. Because Form 1s currently, they have been asked to admit 630 Form 1s. That means that they are going to roll out 9 streams whose sizes is about 70 per class. And that is unbearable. Because most of those classes were built to accommodate up to 40. But now they are accommodating 70. And now the teacher does not even have a place to work. So how can this teacher now attend to individual needs of the learners in that class? That is the secondary school. I also attended a meeting on Tuesday of head teachers in Rachwanya North for their new year. And then you realize that even disbursement to schools is still constrained. They have not received their 50% of what is supposed to be disbursed in free primary education. And when you look at that allocation also, that disbursement is just awkward. Because, for example, each student in primary school is allocated 1,400. For a whole year, that one is a mockery of all sorts.
What is this 1,400 supposed to do?
That is to cover all manner of tuition, co-curricular activities and so on. And in fact, co-curricular activity, it is allocated 39 shillings per pupil per year. And then the ministry also takes back 30 shillings, only leaves the school with 9 bob.
Takes back 30 shillings. How?
To manage the stages of all co-curricular activities. We have got sub-county events, you have the extra-county events and national events.
Okay, so it seems to me that the focus now has been taken away from the student, which should be the core focus now when it comes to this education. But now you've said several times that you asked that you asked questions. The union asks questions. Now, of course, these questions are being directed to someone. I'm hoping they would be the Ministry of Education. What answers have you been given? If we're looking at this 39 shillings per child per year, we're looking at 1,400 shillings per student per year. We're looking at capacity, critical things. I'm asking again, when you ask questions to the Ministry of Education, as in how are we supposed to do this, what answers do you get?
From where we sit, our focus is not supposed to be student welfare per se.
Yes.
The focus of the teacher is basically, or the union is basically to look at the welfare of the teacher. But of course we are teachers, because this our primary stakeholder in our environment is the learner.
Yes.
And we are also the same citizens, and we are also
your parents,
parents and so on. So because of our knowledge of what happens at where we work, we ask very critical questions, but we lack the support from other components of government.
So they're not answering you?
They are not answering us. What you can see is maybe a revision that currently now we have improved. Like, for example, the secondary schools were getting about 13,000 shillings for every student, but they improved it to 22,000 shillings. So you would only see that because they say they have rationalized this, having consulted the schools and their needs. But when you look at the whole cost of education, when you attach a specific amount, and then you say now this one is sufficient enough, it is an understatement of sorts. Because one thing is, we know, and you people know in Kenya, that the cost of secondary education it cannot be transacted with 22,000 shillings. Because schools charge as much as 110,000. Who bridges the gap of this 80,000?
The parent, of course.
The parent, of course. And therefore, when the current the cabinet secretary announces that no Kenyan's pupils should be sent away from school, who is going to bridge this? Are you getting that point? So those are questions. But so we
those
consider
are the questions we want to
as teachers and as teachers unions, we now say that we are numbers in the bus. And therefore, if we want, because the owner of the bus want us to be there, let us just start collecting the money from passengers. Yes.
Wow.
Hey, Chief Manamba is in the studio this morning. Akelo Misori is the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. We are talking about the education sector, especially now that we have 100% transition from primary to secondary. That's the conversation we're having. Let's allow him to have a sip of water, take a short break. As 18 minutes past 7, the conversation continues. Good morning.
The 80s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. 96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Akelo Misori, the Secretary General of KUPPET, is in the studio. We're discussing education. So you're saying, yes, the owner of the bus has decided this is the direction we're taking. And you have designated yourself the position of Manamba and said, well, if this is where the bus is going, let's just collect the money. But there's a critical issue here that you've raised. The government is sending a certain amount of money, that 22,000 shillings you said, per student. This is in secondary school.
Yes.
Why is it that teachers find it necessary to demand as high as 100,000 shillings in school fees?
Let me just tell you that education is not a very easy and a very cheap venture. And all the things which go with running of a school are things which are not cheap. I want to just pick one component. That currently what is established before the 100% transition, it was the teacher gap, which according to the current running data is 98,000 in the teacher gap. Who bridges this gap when you have already now brought in 100% transition from primary to secondary school? You find a school like, for example, I just mentioned a school which was designed like Kisumu school. It is supposed to have at least 100 teachers posted to teach in that school with the 2,300 students which they have currently. And now the establishment which has been occasioned by the Teacher Service Commission is only 55 teachers. So who will now bring in the gap to bring in 45 teachers more? This is where the extra charges will now go. Another thing is some schools are boarding. 22,000 shillings cannot run a boarding school. So you realize that what the minister fails to tell us, that the boarding section is supposed to run with this kind of standards. Every school, like some schools, like if you look at a school like Kenya High in Nairobi, that school you cannot give the learners uji, for example, as their breakfast. You must just give them the standard of what their parents give them at home. So these are the things which make running of those schools.
So the parent must pay for this?
Must pay for that. And that is the reality on the ground. Let me just tell you that before this ministry came up, or before the policy of giving disbursement, we call it affordable secondary school disbursement, the schools were charging as much as 150,000. So the ministry stamped it fit, then they want to ease the burden. But even in the process of easing the burden, they have not sorted the whole issue. Because I want my child to get this at school. Why are you denying? And some parents insist that why are you curtailing our support to schools? So these are the challenges. So you as a head teacher, head teachers and teachers have been accused that they are charging. It is not the teachers who charge. We can as well go to school, teach, and so on. But this is a human issue, because the social issue, economic issue, and so on. Yes. Yeah.
Akello, you have your contemporary in the studio this morning. Siti Muga has been a teacher. You're still registered as a teacher, aren't you, Siti?
I don't think so.
You registered at some
from
point.
the Teacher Service Commission a
long time ago.
Did you return your teaching certificate registration?
No, you can be recalled.
Once a teacher is always a teacher.
You should be paying Akello Misori for
In fact, I'm giving him the membership form
right now.
Is there a SACCO attached to the union?
Yes.
Okay, and they give loans?
Serious loans.
Then I am taking the form today. Ndugu Karibu.
Thank you.
Would you say there is free primary education in Kenya?
There's nothing free. There's nothing free primary education in Kenya, because you realize that as the government is saying free, that is the political connotation of what they say. Somebody must pay for it. The Kenyan taxpayer is paying for that education. But it is not free, because besides what the government pays in terms of disbursement, they call it free primary education disbursement, the parents still, like, in fact, I just mentioned that on Tuesday I had a meeting with I hacked into a meeting of the teachers of Rachwanya North in Homa Bay. And I heard the sub-county director announce that, you will have to support. And the support we want from you, you must collect at least 30 shillings from every pupil. What is it for? That one, even if it is 2 bob, don't you realize that one, there's nothing free?
It's no longer free.
Yeah, it is no longer free.
There's still money going.
But do you also think that the education in this country can actually be managed, and can it actually be made feasible? Because what we see on a daily basis is confusion.
I believe that if we prioritize education, if we give all our time to say this is what we want in education, if we design our philosophy well, that education in Kenya is supposed to give us the following. It's supposed to control the politics, control the social, the economy of our country. Then we will invest all our policy strategies to support education. So it is very feasible because it has been done. In India has got free education. Most of the Western nations have a free education. As much as those who want to have private education can still pay for private institutions, but education can be made free. I was in Germany the other time, and I realized Germany, it is free. But
Genuinely free.
But it is genuinely free. You don't, as a parent, you don't control. I was in Switzerland in June last year, and even early childhood, somebody comes to tell you that this child who was born on this particular date is supposed to go to ECD. Can you tell us? Can you tell us among these schools? Because a child should not pass through more than two streets going to school. Can you tell us which among these will be your child is supposed to go? That is what you say. And then they follow you up. Currently, they are telling us we must mop out those, like the minister said, we are going to use the Ministry of Interior to mop out those children who have not gone to school or not going to school. And no school should send away
children, pupils.
But a head teacher recounted how a boy who was admitted at Mbita High School could not go because of fees. And that is something is in Kenya. Don't you think we have got an MCA there? We have got a ward administrator. We have got a member of parliament. Why couldn't they petition the member of parliament that this child is supposed to go to Mbita? The minister said we must not take them. So these are things which are just their statements. And it is high time that somebody in the name of a cabinet secretary, principal secretary, must now come out openly and say these are the doables that the ministry has said we are doing. But this one should be embedded in policy framework. But we need Parliament to take time to discuss the element of education and say this is what we want.
You have a teacher, a union leader in Parliament, right? And this is you have many teachers in Parliament who've gone there. And why is it that they're not discussing and raising these issues?
That's how we miss it, because we think when it comes to education, those people did not go to Parliament as teachers. They were elected by everybody.
Yes.
And everybody should tell them that this is what we want to do. According to us, we have told them, this is what you must tell us. In fact, my chairman is the MP for Emuhaya. We don't just have one teacher. We are so many. There are more than 5. In fact, then I've told him that you must now prepare a bill to define what education is, to give a template of the nature of schools, even the nature of categorization we have. I think it is discriminatory.
So why haven't they done that?
I think they may be working on it, but it also depends on the wider globe, what we call that parliament. Will they give them sufficient time to discuss it? Yeah.
Well, you people are very good at agitating. When we see you going out in the streets and coming together and singing solidarity and holding hands, you're very, very strong. Now, when you tell me the chairman of KUPPET is in Parliament, the Secretary General of NAT is in Parliament, we have other teachers, senior teachers, retired teachers, or currently serving teachers who are in that Parliament, but we are not hearing the voice of education from that Parliament. What's the missing link here?
I think you are now also accusing the victims. Let me just talk about that Parliament has got a mandate. Parliament has got parties, and parties also have got the agenda. The agenda in education, the agenda in economy, the agenda in social welfare and health. So if you narrow it down to members who have come from teaching to spearhead education, then we miss it. What is the NASA agenda in terms of education? What of Jubilee in terms of? In fact, this is where they have a common denominator, that education is servicing both. Education is servicing a standard group. What is standard group doing to contribute to the education debate? It is good today you have thought it wise to call somebody who is serious like me to discuss this matter. but beyond this, what else are you doing on a weekly basis or a monthly basis?
So I hear you saying then that enough importance is not being placed on now.
It is not.
It is not.
It is not.
In terms of education, and if we're looking at now,
but is that really true?
This is what I'm asking. I'm hearing you say that.
If you look at our budget,
the budget has the education actually has a lion's share of the budget, the national budget. Now, in terms of importance, I know a lot of times we put importance then on money.
TSC is among the biggest
terms of the budget,
employers
in the country, right?
It is good to say that TSC is the one, but that money is going to pay salaries.
Yes.
The salary which is attached to numbers. And those numbers are also not well paid. But the reason for which I'm talking about this, as nobody has placed some significance on this, look at the security situation which also facilitate education. Who is thinking about education in the northern frontiers of this country? You realize the other time we were talking about give teachers guns. I use that point. Because it appears that when you go there to teach, if you come from this side of the country, you are the target. You are seen as a stranger, and yet you are going to transact something very serious. If we had a nation which has priority on education, then you say that the children of this place have a right to education, and they must be taught well, and therefore we must improve the security, and this is our strategy of how to improve this security. Leave alone the element of infrastructure. I want to say this: it is good to say in paper that education has got a lion's share. Are you aware in this country there are certain regions where classrooms are still conducted under tree? Yet we have got CDF. Who follows that before you give bursaries? And even that bursary, how much do you give as a bursary? You find that a student whose fee is 74,000 is being given a bursary of 3,000 shillings. How is that a mockery, or just like you are saying figures?
Ticking the box. Akela Misori, we'll continue the conversation shortly. Let's first take a look at what's happening on the roads at 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Akela Misori is the Secretary General of KUPPET, that's the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. We are talking the education sector. When you come out of this break, he's already taken us there, so we'll go there. The security situation in northeastern parts of the country and the plight of teachers who are serving there. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nyeri.
Okay, things not looking so much better on
Traffic.
Mombasa Road, unfortunately. Still a bumper-to-bumper situation as we go through. Asking what's happening on Thika Road. Yes, well, the same old as every morning. It is quite the traffic coming off Kiambu Road, where you finally are able to join with the Thika Superhighway. Then you get stuck at approaching the Pangani underpass, leading you to different parts of the city. But that is chock-a-blocked right now, unfortunately. All right, Ngong Road, the junction between Karen and Ngong is causing some traffic. The policemen at the scene are trying to control traffic, but it's backed up all the way to Karen Plains, and this is what's happening today. So Ngong Road, unfortunately, not looking so good. Mombasa Road, of course, being described as a huge car bazaar today. The traffic officers along the road, but this doesn't seem to be helping. Manyanja Road and Donholm phase 2, heavy traffic heading towards Greenfields, and of course then joining as you try to get to the city centre. And Jogo Road has joined it all with traffic. It's not happening today, folks. We are right in the middle of what I like to call traffic hour. Let's see what it looks like in a short while, but for now you have to sit it out, folks, and be patient. If you find an alternate, let's be nice and share. Spice FM KE or 0719 012600.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues with Akello Misori, the Secretary General of KUPPET. And let's now talk about the plight of teachers. So we've seen some teachers demonstrating and demanding to be transferred due to insecurity in the northeastern parts of the country. Of course, we've seen Al-Shabaab attacks that have targeted people, and some of those people who have been killed are teachers. What is it that the union is doing to address the plight of those and to help those teachers actually get reprieve?
First, let me just say that the employer is a responsible employer, and the employer did its best to post teachers in northern Kenya. Now, the security must be taken seriously by other arms of government. We have got the Ministry of Interior and so on. We have seen that the terror attacks target teachers not necessarily during the day when they are in school, but they attack them at night. And what we have done is that because teachers are traumatized in such regions, we have asked the Teacher Service Commission remove the teachers and let us have a national conversation on how we can secure that region for the purposes of transacting the business of education. I wanted to give an example that we have the Gaza Strip in that region where the Israelis, the Palestinians live together. Education takes place in such regions because everybody has been brought up to speed on matters of security. You know what to do when something happens in a bus. So in our situation, we find that you are just being taken there without security consciousness. And we are taken there without the local community accepting that this is a national institution, a national policy that teachers must be posted everywhere in this country. But you realize that the people of that region do not address that issue at all. The teachers are not well prepared to go and teach there. When you look at the number of teachers who are running away from that region and even their demographic in terms of ages, you realize that those are teachers who are between the age of 26 and 34. They are not teachers of my age of 50 and that.
Would it be better if they were, according to you?
No, I'm just talking about why do we have such kind of demographics? Because people who have gone there cannot sustain staying there longer because of fear and because of traumatic experiences they have undergone in the past and so on. But everybody is a target, including the police station. The police in the northern Kenya are not properly facilitated to deal with the situation. Have you got that point? Well, like what happened in this place near Bora is about 230 kilometers from the border. So you cannot say that these attackers were coming there when they were not known. These are people who must be living within the community. What is the local community doing to secure the institutions to guarantee the safety of those who are transacting? It is not only teachers.
Second time you're mentioning the local community, and let's actually get into that. Are you saying that the local community is not supporting the teachers from, shall we call them Bara, or from
they are not supporting.
Country?
They are not supporting.
So the local community is working against
the kind of experience that the teachers have told us, that even this attack, they were warned a week earlier. And the people who are killed are those people who are found sleeping in their houses.
So they had not received the warning.
They had received the warning, but they ignored. The others who took precaution were sleeping in the wilderness. For how long can a teacher sleep in the wilderness and then to go to school to teach? That during the day you are going to school to teach, then at night you cannot go to your house.
Sleep under a tree.
Under a tree. Because these are people who will target where they know people stay. They are not going to search for teachers in the bush. They are going to their specific residential areas.
And to target, then it means, as you say correctly, they have intel. They know the teachers. They know where they live. Yes. And how do you get that information? It has
from
to be
the
locals.
Yes. So they're being singled out.
They are singled out. And in fact, this is an orchestrated scheme which the Kenyan intelligence ought to have known. That what is the philosophy behind refusing to accept government service from our fellow Kenyans, when the taxpayers are used to support education, to support health, to support all other programs, and then you don't want them to work there. I think this is a conversation because the leader of majority in parliament comes from Garissa. The attack took place 30 kilometers from Garissa town. Does it mean that himself he doesn't visit home? Have you heard him comment about this to date?
No.
Are we honest as Kenyans? Are we having a conversation with people we trust or not? These are the things we do. Like us, we don't want to say that remove teachers, because education is a right, and every Kenya, whether it is in mass, must be given the same education. So these are the things which are not adding up. So with us, we want a secure environment where we can transact our business of teaching. In fact, even standard group, if you this place not secure, you cannot have this program. Why are we experimenting with the life of Kenyans that you go there teach? And you know what the Teacher Service Commission
As a
did?
teachers union, what do you do to address this particular issue? Because you're raising a couple of issues. One, there's insecurity, yes, in general, but at the same time, you're accusing the local community of not accepting and welcoming teachers from other parts of the country.
This time around, we did not address the Teacher Service Commission, because we realized Teacher Service Commission is also a victim of a circumstance like just us. Because they are an employer, they have done their best, they have posted the teachers there. So we addressed this issue with the Ministry of Interior. And we see that this must be a multi-agency approach to address the issue. One, even foreigners coming to Kenya are being given induction on how to behave when they come to the coast.
To live here.
To live here and so on. If you are going to be a teacher in northern Kenya, we are proposing a special paramilitary training, a level of preparedness that as you go there, this is the nature of the people you are going to interact with. But besides that, why don't you arm me at night? Because these people also are blind.
You want teachers to carry arms.
Why you have seen Northern Carolina demonstrated last week that they want to right to have as many guns as they want. Why? In the civilized society, if you know very well that I'm armed, you cannot just come to me to butcher me. You must also prepare that I can also kill you. So if that is the case in Kenya and nobody is taken, then the police cannot give you protection. Why can't you be armed to give protection to yourself?
City, are you hearing what the Secretary General of Cooper is saying?
Not
Basically,
only-
he's saying that teachers must carry arms, and then we'll go now from that to KMPDU saying doctors must carry arms.
Yes.
Somebody else will come and
Yes.
say, clinical officers serving in that area must carry arms.
Actually, Eric, this isn't a new concept. If you travel, let's not even go to Northeastern Province. If you go to Tana River, where they've also had similar issues, you will find what you call the Waziri, the Mijikumi, are armed. They're actually armed.
Recognized as reservists.
Yes, they're armed. They're called reservists, but they're armed. Why? Because the people who attack them are also armed. Okay, they are armed with G3 weapons. Maybe they've improved them now, and the fellows who come with the AKs, but they are armed because it is understood that the sort of problems they have require ammunition. It's the only part of the country going north that has that situation. Other parts of the country don't have that because they don't have that problem.
Suguta Valley and
But I want to reveal to you something which many people in Kenya do not know. Are you aware that many of our national schools are having police stations in there? Yeah, are you aware of that? Why is Northern Kenya not given that kind of treatment?
Status.
We need now every school to at least have 3 policemen. If this school has 3 policemen, the other one has 3, the other one has 3, and there are also 20 schools.
It's going to send a message, right?
That these schools are armed.
Protected.
They're protected.
Right.
Yeah, protected. So but in the event that you don't give such, then you arm the personnel working there, because the children in those regions, I'm sure, are aware that our teachers will be killed today where they stay.
Obviously, and
they don't tell you.
I keep going back to this because obviously this is something that has come up not once, not twice, and it has come up, over time. This particular issue of certain areas being protected, and I still want to know then: has anything been done? Who, when these questions or when these issues are being brought forward to the relevant authorities who can actually do something about it, what has the response been? And then has there been further agitation if nothing has happened?
Like us, we have got one major tool which we will use, and I wonder how, as teachers unions, we will go on strike that we want the government to secure Northern Kenya. Kenyans should go on strike, not only teachers. that northern Kenya should be secure. We must put our parliament to account for the policy they have in terms of security of that northern region. I think it is high time that we stop politicking, but we go specifically to administratively deal with the northern Kenya issue. That is the reason for which, as COPET, we have now engaged the Ministry of Interior with very serious proposals that in an event that education must be taken to northern Kenya, then the teachers must be prepared.
Must be prepared,
Yeah.
right?
The police in Kenya or northern Kenya must also be prepared. You know, what the teachers tell us is very interesting. They're telling us that the police is telling them that we cannot come out at night to face these attackers because we don't know how armed they are. It means that even the police,
Are ill-equipped.
are ill-equipped, and they are put there for sentimental value. For the ministry to massage
for show.
to massage its ego, to say that but we have got our borders are
personnel.
protected. Yeah.
But Secretary General, you know, the issue in northern Kenya, or NFD as it was called, is as old as time, right from independence. But in those days, I think the problems one had was some lorries being hijacked, the occasional attack. But with this new radicalization, this is new because people have been posted to the northern part of Kenya from other parts of this country for the longest time. But the current threat that we now face, or what we see, has actually not been there. This is new, where the target actually teachers, and you can see it is determined. You look at what happened in Mpeketoni. You look at what has happened around. It's deliberate, and it cannot possibly happen without the collusion of the locals. Now, my question: why don't you just agitate to have teachers stopped? Just stop the teachers from going there. Stop until all these things are put in place.
Because when there's a disruption of services, somebody is bound
Just
to take
stop.
notice.
Completely
Disruption,
stop until
somebody is going to take notice and say, okay, hold on, what is actually going on here? But if there's agitation and the teachers keep going, then they keep suffering. So if you remove it completely, don't you see now that will get people to sit up and take notice?
You want
that
the
something
children
is
to
actually
suffer so
happening?
that this issue is addressed?
Yes.
So the
Something
children
has-
are going to
Yes.
suffer.
Yes, something has to give.
Yes.
Somebody has to suffer at some point for them to do what they're supposed
The
to
child
do.
is the most innocent.
Unfortunately,
in that
it
equation.
is seen that
Yes.
when two elephants fight, the grass will suffer.
Eric,
but
it
at
is
some point,
true.
something needs to.
Are you
Something
then
has got
saying
to
that
give.
more teachers should be killed so that children can have education?
No, the government
Stop
should
the
address the
process.
issue.
Stop the
but
process.
But
do
they've not
do
arrested the
impact
issue.
The teachers.
The issue has not been arrested, and
Let's
this
take a
is
short
the issue
break.
is
At
just
12
that.
minutes to 8 o'clock, Akelo Misori will answer this question when we come out of this short break. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Akelo, my colleagues are asking you, why don't you down your tools? Move out all your teachers from the area.
Today I'm getting encouragement from a very unholy quarter because you were trying to incite me to withdraw. But what I'm telling you, you people do not have the capacity to incite me. We are properly incited on this matter. But I wanted just to say that before we go to that level, Kenyans must have a conversation of the security, and more specifically the security of northern Kenya. Because you realize it is not only teachers. Are you aware that the Cuban doctor who was abducted has even recovered?
He's still in captivity.
So, this is not a situation of teachers. And terrorism is an international issue. We as a nation must not just play lip service that we want to secure towns and we don't want to secure the villages. Education should be a major driver to inject sanity in that region. And that is what can even bring security. Because an enlightened team of Kenyans on values, on how we can live together is better than even arming them Are you getting that bit?
You know, Mr.
The
Mr.
idea
one
of
the
having
unfortunate things that we have is when one talks to us about conversation, we are reminded of politicians. Because the one thing that the political class in this country does is they talk to us, and whenever a question is raised, they respond to it by further talk. The discussion, you say, is important, yes. But for how long are we going to continue having discussions? So people are going to continue dying, we are going to continue having discussions. People are going to continue dying, we're going to continue having discussions. And yet, the path that must be followed is not that difficult to understand.
perfect. And that is what I am saying, that as a union, it is not our mandate to stop workers' public service to be rendered in Northern Kenya. And that is the reason for which I'm saying there should be a national conversation. We have got legitimate institutions in the land. One of them is being Parliament. I think that is what I started with. We have now given our representatives in Parliament that this is a bill that we want you to do. Can you have an education bill which will address all the issues and how we want to transact the business with others? That is before we go to that extreme of strike. Because as Kenyans, we cannot be treated to having just demonstrations as the only panacea to solution to our problems.
Why not petition the TSC to only send teachers from that region to the region? Because the other thing that you're saying is
let me just say, and I want to say, if we want to do that, are we going to have 2 sets of teachers or 3 sets of teachers where others are going to teach in that region? We have somebody even made a proposal, in fact, even a cabinet secretary, lower the teaching grades. So the people from that region,
so you can hire as many as possible.
As many as possible, and they can teach there. My friend, that is politically very dangerous. Because you may not know the philosophy behind these people rejecting people from other places. What if I say, let me be allowed to make this extreme allegation? If they teach their people, and therefore, and it is an admission that now the terror groups have now taken control of Northern Kenya, then they will radicalize the region, and therefore, in another century, nobody else will go there, and it will be another country.
But you're right, Bonamisori. Not very long ago, it was reported that among the attackers was a known teacher.
Yep.
Somebody who taught in a primary school, a teacher who everybody knew to be a teacher.
So that's a dangerous route.
These people cannot be allowed. If Northern Kenya is part of Kenya, then Kenyans must move freely in their own country, and they must transact
everywhere else.
Because people from that region control business in Nairobi, in Migori, in Homa Bay, and in Kisumu, and in Kitale. Why is it that they don't want other people to go and even take milk
work
there? I think it is. That's why I'm saying
big conversation to be had.
A big conversation needs to ensue.
Let's end the conversation here with a question regarding the 2 unions, Kenya National Union of Teachers, and yours, KUPPET.
Yes.
So there has been conversation in public domain that one seems to be getting favors from the TSC to the detriment of the other, and that is you are getting more advantaged by the TSC to try and kill NAT. So more and more teachers are coming your way. NAT is being sidelined. NAT is being killed. What is happening?
NAT is diminishing, as it were.
Why are you sleeping alone in this bed without your colleagues?
I think that is the height of deceit. And,
propaganda.
Propaganda. Which is part of what we have in the union mandate is to constantly carry out propaganda as we propagate your issues. And this is also because unions are partly quasi-political, and I hope you are also joined the team who say that we have admitted we are used to do this. I even came up with a book, Teachers Unions and Labor Relations. Yep. I purposefully came to show you this book. This book does not take the confession that is alluded to us as killing or trying to get favors. KUPPET mandate is post-primary institutions. Whatever is being alluded to that we are part of the scheme to kill the other is merely people who don't want to address the salient issues which affect their institutions
Their own institutions.
Their own institutions.
These words, do they ring a bell? The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers was formed with the tacit approval of the government to counter the then radical and powerful NAT.
I want to give you the reason for which
Those words are contained in your book, the book that you've written.
Yes.
This is what you've said.
It was not done that. It was not done like that, and that's a misconception. This book is trying to explain the reason for which we are formed. By the way, we were formed because we were marginalized in NAT. Terrible
secondary school teachers.
We were marginalized. Both even, you can imagine up to 1990, the secondary school teachers were being employed in job group H. Their counterpart from other trades were being employed in job group K. When the students at Kenyatta University in 1985 agitated to be employed at K, the then General Secretary of KNUT said, why do they want to ask for a job group before they are employed? I mean, that point. So that is what made KUPPET to be there. But another thing, for unions to be formed in the current constitution, all workers have the right to form, join, and participate in the activities of a trade union. And it is not only here. Even UK, where we borrowed, in fact, even KNUT borrowed, they only added K. There is the National Union of Teachers, UK. Are you that point? There are other unions, 3 others. We have a country with very few teachers, only 132 teachers like Sweden. They have 44 teachers unions. So it is not unique. Even in South Africa, even in Botswana, even in Zambia, or even in Zimbabwe. We have all this as part of this. In fact, our coming in on board really made Kenya Union of Teachers to wake up because it was a sleeping giant.
Oh, so it's because of you that now NAT is vibrant.
It is very vibrant. They came to be very vibrant because we are backing and then the giant.
So the kind of support that you're getting from TSC is meant to also.
There is no support we are getting from TSC. I think this is another misconception.
Or no support whatsoever.
What is support? What kind of support do we get from TSC?
A number of things that we've seen. For example, some teachers being deregistered from being members of
let
KNUT.
Me tell you,
money not being remitted by TSC to KNUT.
Let me
allegations
tell you,
that money is coming to your union.
Those are different sets of political arrangements and formations. KUPPET is for post-primary. We cannot recruit members from primary. So nobody from primary can be enlisted as a member of KUPPET. By registration from our own, it is very exclusive. It is post-primary. Majority, the teachers in primary schools are more than 210,000. At that point. So are they members of KUPPET, even as we speak? So these are things which the media consumes, and they also point part of it, and they just escalate it because they have got a forum. I cannot defend myself, we don't care in this because we know very well that there is no favor. Members subscribe to the union through membership, as I was asking
CT to join.
So that they benefit. So they fill their forms. Another point. So if then we protect, we ring fence that kind of arrangement. Is that protection? If by Target 10 of every month, all those members who subscribe to the union are supposed to bring the TC is supposed to remit by law. So is that a protection? I don't know what has happened between our colleagues and the Teacher Service Commission. That one they can come here and explain. But within that arrangement, the interface does not involve KUPPET.
So no bad blood between KUPPET and NAT.
Let me tell you, no bad blood.
Okay.
You know, for the longest time, NAT was always seen as a union that represented primary school teachers.
Yeah.
For the longest time.
Because they were the most vocal.
No.
Most visible.
There was no other union.
That's the point.
That is the confession.
Thank you very much, Akela Misori, for joining us this morning. Asante sana.
Thank you.
We wish you all the best. And yes, that conversation about the teacher security in the northeastern parts of the country is important to continue having. The argument and the debate on whether teachers should be armed is also an important conversation. Whether this holds water, whether it goes far, let's wait and see, or whether you actually have another agenda that you're pushing. pushing here. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also you can comment on YouTube because we are live streaming on all those platforms, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Have a good day, Akello.
Thank you so much.
All right, good one. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we switch gears a little bit and have more conversations from around the world. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, let's take a look at Waiyaki Way today. It's jam-packed, not moving from Kangemi to ABC Place, taking folks about 1 hour on that short stretch. Definitely nothing can be attributed to that this morning. No accidents or incidents in that area, but we do have heightened levels of traffic. We see the same thing for close to tears of people on Mombasa Road as well. Coming down from Syokimau, it is absolutely jam-packed, bumper to bumper, literally today, and has been the case for the last 4 days. We're not quite sure why, but it seems to be that there's an influx of vehicles on the road, and that's the reason more and more people are getting into their vehicles this morning and every other morning since Monday. Thika Road all the way from Utali is jam-packed, but it is moving, so we have some movement there today. Let's see, other parts of the city, Mombasa Road, Langata Road is not so bad either, except that we do have that snarl up right after the Bombers of Kenya that's snaking all the way down to the roundabout at the T-Mall area. So let's see, but for now it's definitely still in the throes of traffic hour. We'll see what it looks like in a short while. 0719 012 600 is the number to call. Tweet us on Spice FM KE and let's see how we can keep people moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So if you think teachers in the northeastern parts of the country should be armed, post your comment on Facebook's Spice FM KE. You can also tag us on Twitter at Spice FM KE and individually at Eric Latif, at City Muga, at Nduoko. At 2.5 minutes past 8 o'clock, this is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. I'd like to tell you that from 9 to 10, we'll be having the vice chairperson of the Ukweli Party. And this is Shefa Okore. And Shefa Okore will be here. We'll be talking about women in leadership. And specific question this morning is Kenya ready for a woman president? Well, before then, let's go to the UK.
Well, definitely. I think right now where we are is that we see a number of leaders, African leaders, leaving the UK from today after the UK Africa Investment Summit in London has come to an end. And again, we've seen the invite, or we've seen the outstretched hand of Western, or let's say non-African powers to African leaders saying, come and let's have a discussion about what can occur with our relationships. We saw it coming out of China a few months ago. We saw it coming out of Russia. We then now see it, of course, coming out of the UK to say, here is our hand, our friendly hand of development that we have extended to you. And we're saying, okay, let's have a conversation about what can happen. We have seen that before yesterday, 170 billion shillings, or the equivalent of such, has been agreed between the governments of the UK and Kenya, just as an example. By the time these talks were over, Kenya has then now signed 272 billion shillings in terms of trade agreements with the UK. And of course, this extends to other countries as well. Agreements have been made with South Africa, agreements have been made with Nigeria, agreements have been made with Rwanda and such in terms of the development agenda that the UK has. Of course, we can look at it and say, yes, it's the friendly hand of development that is being extended to African countries. But of course, we have also agreed time and time again that nothing is being done without the interests of the extender of the hand right at the heart of all of this. And I'm saying that, you know what, it's about time. If the interest really lies in development, then they are the ones who should actually come knocking. The invitation has been extended time without number. You come and let us tell you what you can do for us. If this pie that is Africa in terms of its resources and what can be done here on the continent is so appealing, then it's about time they came here. I think it should be the other way, and I think that not.
Why are you fearing that Nakula fair?
No, I think we have more than enough in terms of what is needed to hop on a plane. But I'm saying that if you realize that we also need to then realize of course we understand the potential, but in terms of getting it done and the work that needs to be done, we then also need to realize that we actually do have the upper hand. In this case, actually do have the upper hand. Because at the end of the day, the resources, whether we're looking at human resource, whether we're looking at natural resources, are here. And there's a reason why they keep saying, you come, let's have a discussion. And
on how we can come and
invest in your country. So now I'm saying, no. It's about time that we say we need to be aware, really aware of what is going on. And I think I've said this before, that the awareness needs to be stepped up a notch to say, folks, this is what they see. Why don't we see the same? As opposed to them say, okay, actually, now that you've invited me, let me come and say, this is actually what I need, and perhaps we can come up with an agreement based on that. And I'm saying, no. Here we are. This is what we have. The opportunities that are here on the continent that are rife, we are saying, since you do have the prowess, whether it is economically or whether it is from experience about what you've been able to do, you come here and let me show you what I think that I would like to do and where then I need your input or where I need your advice. This, I think we have to get away. I think it cannot be understated that it's a two-way traffic.
Right.
I think we've passed the stage whereby one is extending a hand of beggars.
In whose backyard?
But why is this suddenly new? We've been trading with the UK since, before we got independence and after we got independent. Why this new push? What is this new thing that we want to do that we haven't been doing?
More investment.
And why this sudden push?
And everybody seems to be awake to it. Everybody seems to be awake to it. In the last 3 months, there have been 3 summits. Russia, China, and now the UK.
And everybody, Japan is coming
Japan is coming very quickly.
But Japan have been here for the longest time.
Hot on the heels of one another.
But we always go there. Yes, they'll come and invest. But then the issue here is, and what Ndu is raising,
they brought their ticket conference here, Chief.
Japan is actually one of the
first time. The first time it happened outside of Japan.
It doesn't matter. I'm
Kenya,
simply saying
right?
it has happened.
Yes, once. Though the Chinese have not brought theirs, the Russians have not brought theirs, the Britons have not brought theirs, the Americans haven't brought theirs. It's always you come and we tell you how we talk about how we can work together.
We prefer to go.
There are those that could have argued, and that's what the point I wanted to raise. Who is investing? We are basically saying your investors, the investors in your country can come and invest in this country, right? So basically you're saying the more investors are there that you would like to bring, and the person who's going to sell the investment destination is one. So it's easier for you to send your small government delegation to go and meet with these hundreds of investors in one location, and you sell your destination and you sell your policies and say, this is what the opportunities that abound, come and invest. It's easier that way than telling all those investors, come to Kenya. The investors will be like, why am I coming to Kenya?
But did they go? But this is the thing is here. I'll give you an example. During the summit, all those investors were not met. They were not met. It was heads meeting with each other.
Heads were meeting, but also there were conferences and seminars and side meetings, right? Those side meetings are where the investors actually meet. When we're saying that the president has secured several hundred millions of pounds worth of investment, this is what we're talking about. When he was meeting with Diageo and Diageo committing to spend more money, it's because there has been a sideline meeting, a meeting on the sidelines of this.
Yes, I'm saying that those.
With those investors.
I'm saying that those need to happen here. It's the same thing that you have a corporate and you say that your headquarters for Africa is based in Paris. How does that make sense now when you're saying that the pertinent issues on the African continent are going to be handled outside the country, whereas getting an understanding of what is happening on the ground, absolutely bring them here. And let's say you're really that interested in knowing what, because like I said, it's a two-way traffic. The hand of the beggar is not extended anymore. I think we passed that stage. Before, when we were really begging for handouts to say, please help us in terms of our development to take it up a notch and say that we're begging, I think we passed that stage
and
now.
In those days of begging,
to the point
these
where
meetings were not happening.
Now they're happening, and I'm saying they should be happening here. Because the realization, look, Uhuru Kenyatta leaves London today, and where is he going? He's not coming back home. Where is he going?
Where is he going?
He's going to France to discuss trade in tea, because France has decided that they also want a part of this pie. They have seen that London is benefiting. They've seen that Hong Kong is benefiting. They've seen that countries in Europe are benefiting as well. They also want a piece of the pie. They don't want to be left out either.
So the president is going to France to market Kenya as an investment destination.
No, he has actually been invited to come and have a discussion about how Kenya and France can have relations on how their tea will be, how they can have a part of this tea trade. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's not going to market it. It's saying, oh, well, we've seen that also there's something that we can do. Come and let's have a discussion.
It's going to market it.
You come to me on the invite of France.
Eric, Kenya as a destination for investment was marketed a long time ago.
Yes.
We have more investors than we know what to do with. These 290 billion that you speak of, in 2019 alone, there were investments slightly beyond that amount here already. UK remains cumulative, the largest investor in Kenya. The country with the greatest number of new investments is actually China. So again, remember, the biggest shareholder in Brookside is actually a French
company.
We've been dealing with France for the longest time. France has a financial institution, I think it's called AFT, that deals with finances of this sort. For the first time, they actually have an office in Kenya. If you read the Business Daily, you'll come across such things. It exists. Now, these are multinational lenders. They don't lend small money, they lend to countries. It's not as though you and I can go and then say, we'd like to open a savings account. No, we can't. Okay? But they aren't the only country. Whether it is Belgium, whether it is Germany, the Europeans have been flocking into Kenya to invest. So the issue of marketing, yes, you could have a one-on-one conversation. People who want to invest, no. They don't need to be told. As I'm saying, you talk to a Chamber of Commerce. Look at the news about the Chamber of Commerce in these various countries. Believe me, the queue is long of people who want to invest in the country. When I say long, I mean it is long. So what the president...
I'm not getting what you're saying. So there's no need for these meetings?
No, the meetings have nothing to do with marketing. It's to firm with certain things that they've been talking about. And since you're here, let's firm it. But as to marketing, no.
It plays a multiplicity of prongs. One, there is the marketing. Two, there is what does the government to facilitate these investors who are coming. What is it that we need to do? Right? So what is it that as a government we need to do to secure those investments? What is it that as a source government, the UK government, what do we need to do to ensure that our citizens who are coming to invest in your country also have a conducive environment? That's why the governments are there. That's why the governments are inviting one another. And
no,
then
I think
that's also an
we can't ignore the fact that it comes
It's also an opportunity for the government to go and say, these are the opportunities that you have in the country. These are the opportunities.
No.
In case
we
you
can't
do not
ignore
know.
the fact that this has come in
Why
close...
is it that
the conversations cannot
the
be
president
had?
held meetings and had discussions with investors?
Eric, the
in those
conversation
meetings?
cannot be had if the investors don't know what it is that they want.
Of course,
investors are clear. The conversations that we are now seeing, those are the optics.
It's a signing of the
discussions
deals.
always take place that lead to what we're now seeing.
Yes.
Even the visit to France, it's not as though, oh, brother, you're in the neighborhood.
Just come
over.
along.
No. Planned, talked about well in advance, so that when you go here, it's planned. You go from this place to this place to firm what probably has been taking place for a long time.
Yes.
Just like the signing of those multinational things that we signed. That's the optics. People had agreed on that long before. Kenya as a destination for investment does not actually require further advertisement or further marketing, in my opinion. Not really.
It does require a lot of conversations.
Conversation
Yes.
maybe to firm what people want to do, but as to a destination for investment,
not only that,
not necessarily.
Not only that, CT. Not only that. Let's be clear. I mean, when a company is coming to invest in the country, there are those challenges. There are those areas that they'd like things smoothen over. How long is it going to take me to register my company? How long is it going to take me to start the business? These are the legal challenges that I'm encountering as I seek to invest in your country. That's why you're dealing with the government now, not just coming in and say, I'd like to come and take up shares in CT Muga and Co. No, it's what do I need to ensure that my business will be smooth? That's why these conferences and meetings are happening.
They have
I think
embassies.
they're important.
They have embassies.
Those
Eric.
embassies do exist, yes.
Yes, and those
And the
embassies
conversations happen, even the chambers
have
of
divisions
commerce.
that deal specifically with things like trade.
Yes.
So the questions that you're raising, that's what these guys will have cleared. The meetings of their chamber of commerce and ours,
One to the
that
other.
is what the embassies
And they
do.
happen
will
on a
have
regular basis.
Very regular.
Yes.
They meet, they talk, they come to arrangements, they come to agreements, they know who wants to come in. Again, the president visiting a country, you have some meeting, those are optics. The details of what was actually required and what needs to be done has been discussed. It's not as though that's where they're going to start the discussion. No, it never is.
It fast tracks things. Look at the recent meeting between African leaders and Russia, right? So African leaders went to Russia. What did they come out of there with? So Russia has declared, yes, we're going to support the development of energy sector in Central Africa. We're going to support the ABCD. We're going to invest in this and the other. Of course, those conversations have happened even before this meeting started, but these meetings are firming up some of these deals. And that's why it's important to firm up the deals. When you're going to pitch for business in a certain organization, that's not the first time that organization is hearing about you. They've heard about you, you've sent your proposals, you've had discussions behind the scenes, and then they've told you, come and pitch. Come and pitch and now talk to the entire management, the decision makers, and the decision will be made after you have pitched. That's the whole point. You're going to pitch. Now, you were saying that those meetings should come and happen in Africa. It makes a bit of sense. But also on the other side, you can say the reason why it's happening in those countries is because that's where the investors are. Instead of putting them all on a plane load and bringing them to Nairobi and then shuttling them from Nairobi, take them to Dar es Salaam, take them to Kampala.
Yes, but I think it's also important to consider the fact that a lot of them are the ones who stretched out their hand. They are the ones who have said, like CT said, there's a long line. People who are literally standing at the door waiting to knock it down to ask to come down. And we can't ignore the fact that this is coming off of what we've seen coming out of the Kremlin, what we've seen coming out of China, what we've seen, and then obviously, and I'm telling you, in the next few, we're going to see a lot more of this. Again, we've seen a second wave of people wanting to, of other powers wanting to come in and make sure that they solidify this relationship with Africa. Also, with the realization that many countries also do realize and recognize their sovereignty when it comes to state affairs or when it comes to economic affairs. And I'm saying that at this point, the partnership then must be equal. The partnership then must be equal because we're not at beggar status anymore.
It will never be equal.
I say we have to make steps towards it. We have to make steps toward it, even if it is going to be seen to be.
It will
even
never
if
be
it will
equal.
be, even if it will be seen
Why,
to be.
City?
At some point, we have to be at the point where we have to be at the stage or at the level whereby we're saying, okay, you want to have this discussion with me? Come and let us dine together. Let us then have this conversation from where I sit.
Come and tell me what you want.
That's not going to happen.
It's come and tell me what I want.
You know, Eric,
Really, it can't happen
even
that way.
as we have these discussions, we must tamper with a bit of realism. What is this upper hand that we have?
We have the resources. We have what they want.
That's not the upper hand. The upper hand has to do with our leadership. You can have all the resources in the world like DRC and your country is in shambles. You can have the resources that Angola had and you still have the poverty level that outstrip countries that are far less than you. So it isn't a question of resources. It's a question of the leadership and the will they have to actually do right by their people. If we know we have the upper hand and the people who go to negotiate on our behalf,
Are you saying their leaders are better than our leaders?
I was saying our leaders are weak and that they argue and they put us in deals that get us into quagmires that we will not get out of for generations to come. That's what I'm saying.
But also, that's where I think you're wrong, City. We have
How
the
am I
upper,
wrong?
We have the upper hand. Forget the leader.
What
we
upper
have,
hand?
We have
It's
the
a
upper
conversation
hand
that
in the
doesn't
resource.
exist.
We have the upper hand in the resource. Now, yes, we
That's
have
not
a
an
failure.
upper hand. We just have the resource.
We
It's not
have
an
a
upper hand.
failure. No, we have the upper
If we had
hand.
an upper hand, we wouldn't need these people
We are not
to
trading
exploit
our
it.
leaders, City. The trade is not between leader. We are taking
But
our
it's
leader
the
there to trade.
Eric,
we
what are you talking about?
We are trading the
it's
resource.
leaders who go and debate these matters and arrive at agreements.
But we are not trading the leader. The leader is going to discuss what are they discussing.
If
They're
the
not
leader
discussing
gets
me
a
as
bad
leader. They're
deal for you,
discussing
Eric,
our-
do you go to discuss these things? No, it's the leader who does it. If the deal they get for you is bad, you're stuck with it. You're stuck with that deal.
Yes,
But we have
that
to also
doesn't mean that-
realize that there is something that is a bargaining chip that is at the center of all of this.
Actually, those are the right words.
Yeah, that is at the center of all of this, regardless of who is at the table
That
having
is
the
why
discussion.
we're having the discussion, because the people we're talking with have known we have that resource. Otherwise, there would be no discussion. They know we have the resource, they need it, and they are coming to argue for their sake, and they bring in people who know how to get a good deal for themselves. We have people who get terrible deals for us all the time.
So is that a reason then why they should not come? That's what I'm saying. Come to the table and say, okay, well,
I'm
going
actually saying
to ask
something a
them.
little more simple. It's a complete waste of time whether they come here, whether we go there. So we might as well just go there. Coming here is not going to change anything. The discussion will just be the same. You think if they come here, the discussion will be different? It won't.
Why?
The thing that I have said.
Because we are forever incapable of having good leaders or good negotiators.
We are incapable of looking after the interests of the citizens.
So if we had strong leaders who understood what it was to be focused and deliberate in terms of moving the countries forward, and they were the ones who then made the invite and said, look, this is what I have, this is my bargaining chip, then come and have the discussion with me, would we see it take a different trajectory based on what you're saying?
Yes.
If we then had strong leaders. So at the end of the day, what we're looking at here is
This
regardless
is a
of
self-hate that City has. And
regardless of what we have, if it is not
I'm
strong
not
leaders,
boarding
then
this
we're
one.
not going to be able to go anywhere.
City has a self-hate. He's saying basically that for over 50 years of our independence, all the people, all the delegations who go there, the leaders of our chamber.
Is that not what he's done? Was just saying.
Our leaders.
I'm discussing the current situation that we have.
But you started by telling us this has always been the case.
We've always had a situation like this, and that is
There
true.
you go. So for the last 50 years of our independence, we've never had the capacity to negotiate better. All
No,
our
we
leaders
haven't
are
actually.
weak.
Actually,
All
we
our
haven't.
leaders, all our negotiators are
Actually,
weak.
we haven't.
All those people are completely bonkers.
Not bonkers, self-centered
Self-centered.
and self-seeking.
So even the next 50 years.
The only thing is
so
that
you're
some
the
of the
only
earlier
citizen
leaders
who is a very good one who
Eric,
can negotiate
it's not
better.
me. This is a discussion. You're personalizing it and saying me.
Yes.
And I'm giving an opinion.
As a Kenyan.
Attack my opinion.
As-
You're now saying me.
As a Kenyan.
Reverse it a little bit.
As a Kenyan.
The decisions that we have
how
been
many
made,
Kenyans, how many Kenyans do we have who would be able to go and negotiate better?
Look, Eric, it's not a question of how many Kenyans do we have. I am talking about the status, what we have, not some theoretical what could have been. If the leaders we've had negotiated well for the citizenry and the resources that we have, the poverty levels, the debt levels, all these things, we've had a period of time when the Kibaki era is my best example, where he went to China, came back, negotiated, and a lot of the projects that we now have arise from that particular era and the plans that they made. Now, that was a good negotiation. But by and large, the trajectory of leadership and how we have gained from that leadership, the leadership gains. The citizenry doesn't.
City, are there people in that delegation who are still present in this government?
There are people in that delegation who are not only present, but they are also well-informed, educated, and they are knowledgeable.
And they're decision makers and negotiators.
Yes, they are.
So we don't have a bad crop of leaders.
Oh, actually we do. I think you need
So
to
why are you
understand.
swallowing your own words?
I'm not swallowing my own words, Eric. If you are supposed to represent the interest of your people and you don't, how then can I refer to you as a good leader? If the outcome of your negotiation works out in a manner that doesn't benefit your citizenry, how can I refer to you as a good leader?
How is it that it's not benefiting us? Maybe
this is the thing that we need also here when we get to these summits or these negotiations. They're one-off things, right? There'll be one in 2021. There'll be another one in 2022. But it's not a negotiation when we get to that point. It really isn't a negotiation in what can you bring, this is what I can offer. It really is, this is what is on the table, this is what we've already planned out. Diageo, for example, didn't come and say, oh, Kenya, what would you like? No, it wasn't like that. It is, this is what we have here. So then if we're going to look at the fact that where then was your contribution, it really was non-existent. And I think, yes, they've used that actually to play their game very well, to realize, okay, we're not asking you what you want. We are telling you that this is what we have on offer and this is what we are going to do. It may not be the cream of our offer, but hey, take it because you are you. This is actually what happens. It's not in that you come and we agree with you as Kenya or you as South Africa and say, okay, what would you like? Let's see what we can do. No. It's prearranged. It's pre-done. And by the time the summit happens, this is what is put on the table.
I think that's the wrong perception.
No, it's this. No, I'm not even trying to be in it. This is actually what happened.
No, how can you say this is actually what happens and you haven't been there?
But
no,
Eric,
it's true. This is what happened.
Eric, you have a situation
people who
in this
prepare
country.
for these meetings. For example, the Ministry of Trade prepares for these meetings, right?
To go and be told what is offer.
Not to go and be told. They go with, this is what as a plan for the government. This is a government policy. These are the government projects. This is what we want to do. Are you saying that LAPSET, they came and told us what they want to do? No, we have a plan for LAPSET, for example. We have a plan for infrastructure. We have a plan for going green and improving our green energy production. This is what we have. And we go and say, these are the opportunities that we have.
No.
The moment you want this thing funded by somebody else,
we are seeking investors
you will dance
in
to
these
their tune.
areas.
Yes.
When you want something funded for yourself as a country, even LAPSET for
example, seeking investors in these areas.
LAPSET, for example, it is a Kenya initiative, is it not? The idea, everything on its own. The minute you're going to open the door to ask for any kind of donor funding, my dear, you will dance to their tune. What you ask, and you say, okay, this is what I want. They will tell you, this is what we are offering. It's not, okay, how far can we go? How much rope do you have that we can play around with? No. Like I said, even this summit, and it's there, it's documented, it's clear. It's not a matter of negotiation.
Infrastructure development.
It's not a matter of negotiation.
Infrastructure development is not donor funded.
Hold on. It's not a matter of negotiation.
It's not donor funded.
Which one?
It's not donor funded. We are paying. We are taking loans. We are getting investments.
It is not.
But what do you think donor funding is?
It's not investment.
But it's not a matter.
But you're given cash for
Hold
free.
on. It is not a matter of negotiation. It is a matter of, okay, you can prepare all the policy and documents and everything that you want to do, which is a requirement, by the way. However, they will tell you what is up for offer.
Of course.
And you will not go there and say,
that's the whole point of a negotiation.
No.
This is what you want.
This
is what I have.
No, you will not go there and say what you want. And what you want does not override the conversation. At the end of the day, this agreement that was
What
made...
informs you? What informs your thinking?
What we have been told.
What have we been told?
What it has been told that what will be received from the UK government as a result of what the UK government has decided through months of negotiations and talking by themselves. This 170 that we saw before the 272 was agreed. This is what Diageo came up with a plan and said, this is what we can offer in terms of investment for the country, in terms of investment for the plan that we are going
How
to
many? Okay, we have a National Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
How many business entities are involved in these processes? Our local business entities. I've known in the past when business leaders have accompanied the president to certain places, but when you're negotiating, is it our bureaucrats negotiating or is it the businessmen as part of the negotiations? Because if it's businessmen, we will lose. Because what we have is a situation where you have bureaucrats negotiating with business people. How do you think that is going to go?
The Chamber of Commerce is represented here, City, in these meetings.
In the negotiations as well?
Yes. That's why the Chamber of Commerce is a critical part of these negotiations.
And you know this for a fact?
Yes. The Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry is in the UK, was in Russia, has gone to TICAD, has gone to China.
All right. Now that we've ascertained that, how valuable is the influence and how does it actually influence the actual decision making of what actually takes place?
I don't know. I don't sit in the meetings.
Are they visitors?
Just like Lindu doesn't know because she doesn't sit in those meetings.
No, I'm telling you that it is
what
not...
do you know?
I'm telling you what I know. That's what I'm telling you.
Let me give an example again, for instance, all right? There are institutions called CFSs, okay?
Yep.
That were very much part and parcel of the cargo movement within the country. Were they involved in the negotiations of the SGR? No.
Nope.
Don't you think they ought to have been? Or the people, because they are part and parcel of it. Now, all I'm saying is that in all these deals, yes, we have business people, we have the National Chamber of Commerce who arguably may accompany these people, but is there participation of any significant influence to the process of negotiation? I highly doubt it.
I highly doubt it. And even if they came and said, you know what, I don't think this can work this way, or they will be told, this is what we have on offer. It happens. And this is what happens year in, year out. We even have critics of the UK government out of the UK right now, and what they're saying on the back end of this UK Africa Summit, that we understand that it is one huge PR event of the United Kingdom, and we know that after a while, what they've done is that they've come on offer and they said, this is what we are giving to you. After a while, these agreements and negotiations then will be left to the little men at the end of it to then carry out. But it is something that they feel that they need to do year on year.
But you see, Ndu, this is what they sold to their people when they wanted to exit from the EU.
And
you'll get other markets.
Yes, this is what they said. They said, it doesn't really matter if we exit from the EU, because what's going to happen is we are able to get other markets. Now, they know very well the EU isn't going to make trade issues easy for them. So, where the upper hand may come in and where they may be a reality is that they actually need new markets. They need stronger business.
Exactly.
Yes.
And for us, understanding this is what I'm saying, is vital and critical. Understanding it from where they also are coming from, as opposed to having an open hand approach all the time. This is what I need. But understanding that, my friend, they actually need this more than you actually know. And I am saying, in this sense, here is where we need to actually play our cards a little better to understand that it wouldn't be easy if we pulled out of this either, for them.
And I'm saying those who go to negotiate for us negotiate deals that don't necessarily benefit the citizenry.
Right, because of course they don't have an understanding.
I think our African leaders completely understand this. They understand the importance
How
that they
to
have
benefit
right now.
themselves.
How to
And they
benefit
also
themselves is
That
very
we
clear.
understand with
They
clarity.
understand why they need to go there, because they're going to get exposed to more investors in one platform. Good morning, it's 8:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
Experiencing heavy traffic on Bunyala Road this morning. Of course, trying to join the Nyayo Stadium roundabout is a headache. We have a bit of showers in some areas of the city today, and this is definitely affecting traffic. It's still quite heavy on Mombasa Road from Cabanas. It's actually at a standstill now, and it's not moving. Ngong Road through Karen Crossroads and getting to Lenana is at a snail pace. Today specifically, there's a problem on Karen Road. Not understanding where that is coming from, but it is standstill traffic. Langata has joined the foray with standstill traffic as well. Waiyaki Way is moving slowly from Waruku towards Safaricom headquarters. Let's see what happens in a short while concerning that. But everywhere you look seems to be a problem. Sections of Parklands to the roundabout, heavy traffic. But we understand that there's construction going on that road, so there's heavy machinery there as well. You need to approach with caution and make sure that you get out, and also understanding that you need to apply some patience as well. Lower Kabete Road has an issue this morning because a tree has fallen blocking the road, so that affects traffic too. Approach with caution as well. Ridgeways, Kiambu Road joining Thika Road also giving us some problems today. Gonna have to be patient, folks. Let's see how we can get out. 0719-012-600 Spice FM KE. Let's see if you have an alternate route that you'd like to share. Please do. It'll help everybody else.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
2079 African leaders have just finished the Africa UK summit. They're coming out of London. Some of them have signed, good deals and secured good business for their countries from, investors in the UK. and they're going back to their country. And now, Ndu, you're saying that this meeting should be happening in Africa.
Well, I think also...
First of all, just to show that we have the upper hand, or we are equal partners, you can also come to where I am.
Well, also, I think this comes with a necessary understanding of really what is taking place and seeing then how countries can benefit as opposed to individuals benefiting. Unfortunately, this is what we have right now. And just coming off the cusp of what CT had said previously, really understanding that, look, these guys, if you're going to look at the UK, for example, I mean, in every summit that we've seen in the last 3 months, the UK has... coming off of Brexit, definitely need more partners because they realize and they've told their people that, look, it doesn't just have to be the EU. There are other global partners that we can, do this song and dance with. And so here is another option. They've got to be relevant. They have to be relevant to their own people. So by the time they come knocking on your door, apart from the agenda of self-interest, they've got to keep themselves afloat. Look at Russia. They've got to retain some relevance in the world. Before, where they were seen as the dark, brooding world power, here now they wanted to take a more friendly approach. And where else better to go than Africa? China, of course, being the world leader now in terms of economics, and of course then a political leader by virtue of the fact that they were stronger with the money, also needed to realize, okay, to keep stretching this empire further, we need to make sure that we have friends. And again, where do they look? The African continent. And I've said this before, without a proper comprehension and understanding of what is really going on, even these agreements in which we go into, they will only benefit in the short term. But if we're looking at long-term benefit, long-term development, long-term interest in the people of the countries where they're coming to make these negotiations in the first place, without a proper understanding, I mean, come on, it's a flash in the pan. And how long is it going to last? And I'm saying,
what are the indicators?
For us to understand that they really are after us to their benefit, we also need to then take it a notch higher than when it comes in how we negotiate these things.
I'm agreeing with you in very many things. Where we seem not to be agreeing is because you seem to be saying that our Kenyan delegation, for instance, was completely unaware, does not understand where we stand, does not understand what the UK investors and the government is pushing for, the kind of situation that they are in.
I didn't say that they don't, not that they don't, understand where the UK is coming from and to see what they stand to lose if these negotiations
and you
don't
think they
come
don't?
through. No, I don't think
We've got people who sit in the
in
foreign affairs ministry, and that's their desk, right? The UK. We've got people who sit in the government, in various government ministries and departments, investment, trade. We've got people who sit at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. This is what they look at. Are you telling me that all these people cannot see what you're seeing?
Let me give you an example.
They can see.
Let's localize
and that's
it.
why when they go
Let's
there,
localize it. Let's localize
easy.
it. And we can, use the same example. The Big Four agenda is not something that the President Uhuru Kenyatta sat in his study and penned on his own.
Of course.
He had people around him and there were advisors who helped him and said, look, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do today.
And people in government who had actually come up with the plans.
We talked about the fact that there are certain things that have not been put in place in order to realize this dream. Same people, same brilliant policymakers, without a full, total, global comprehension of what needs to be done to have UHC, for example, come into being. Do you see what I'm saying? Same brilliant minds behind it, without a total global comprehension of what was needed to have this done.
They do understand. UHC, for example, in fact, you're the one who's told us UHC, for example, has not just been designed by Kenyan technocrats alone. They've brought in international experts, people who are experts in healthcare.
And I am saying
that
there were certain
WHO is involved.
Yes, and they're saying the same thing. There are certain things which have
and
not,
all
which have
those people
not
don't have a
been
global
taken,
view.
There are certain things which were not taken into consideration to have this thing come to reality, come to fruition.
Having
Those
a
are the
global
roadblocks.
view and using that global view to benefit the citizenry are two separate things. The people who man our ministries are well-trained, well-schooled.
Brilliantly, yes.
They understand what they're supposed to do. So every time you look back, you ask, how then do we get ourselves into these
this
messes?
bungle.
And we have all these clever people around us. How do you manage to do that? How?
How would you answer that?
I wouldn't. That's the puzzle.
It's the puzzle.
And that's why I make the statements I make, because if indeed there was no self-interest, because there seemed to be a competing interest here. In the absence of that competing interest, what ought to be done is clear, and yet it's not done. So what is interfering with it? For everything that we say, the outcome ought to correspond with what we're saying. It doesn't.
CT, Ndu is saying that for us to go to the UK Africa Investment Summit, for example, we ought to have understood where they're
I've
coming
understood.
from.
But remember,
and
I
where
told
we
her
are.
that it doesn't matter whether we went there, we
But
came
do you
here.
think we've understood or not?
About what?
Do you think that the delegation that has gone to the UK, for example, was completely aware of the global look of things?
They are,
They
but
know
I've said
what
yes,
Brexit is.
they are. Remember, I started by saying they are educated, they are knowledgeable, they are.
So their negotiation
My
is top-notch.
No, their ability is top-notch. It stops there. That's where it stops.
Actually, having it open out, is a totally different story.
That is what I've been saying all along. With all these things, that's what I find puzzling.
So
That we have this-
Kenya has been seeking, as a policy, Kenya has been seeking to increase its energy production, right? And Kenya has said that we want not to continue relying on rain, right? On hydro generation. We want to expand our green energy production. One of those things is having some solar panels. So a company has seen the opportunity, has seen the pitch by the Kenyan government, and has decided, yes, I'd like to invest, and has had the negotiations with the government. We'd like to invest 6.6 billion shillings worth of Malindi photovoltaic solar park. So they're going to come up with that solar park in Malindi, somewhere I think in the ocean or something. This is what is going to happen because there are negotiators in government who said, this is what we'd like to do. So where would the opportunities lie? They went and presented Malindi. It's not that the Globe Tech went and Globelec as a company. It's not that they went and looked and thought, here's what we have. We have solar panels. We'd like to invest, and we want to invest in Malindi, and we cannot invest anywhere else. And you as a government, take it or leave it. No. Our government must have told them, this is a viable place to put up your investment. They know. They understand.
Oh, yes, I'm saying no one understand. What I'm saying is that coming off of that, it doesn't take that for us to realize then the potential that lies therein. It doesn't take that. And I am saying that in terms of where we have the upper hand is now saying that in the future, because we don't know the life of this thing. We know that, okay, it could come in, negotiations come. Thereafter, I would like to see this Malindi thing come through. I would like to see it because there will come another summit in 2021. There will be another one which will come through. And I'm saying at that point, we should be the ones saying, here, this is where we are. This is where we feel you can plug in. For us to see then the end, see it end to end. For us to see that, yes, we then are the ones who are calling. Yes, put it as that, calling the shots. And we have to be able to take that stance at some point. Now, leadership also it plays a huge and critical part in all of this. Leadership is then essential in making sure that we have those, all those ducks in a row. Without that, then it's almost impossible. Because at the end of the day, like we said, it's not you and I who are going to sit at that negotiation table. And then personal interest, self-interest, unfortunately plays a role in almost all the decisions that are made from leadership, whether it is in this country, whether it is another country in Africa. Leadership, it is very important where we stand. Who the buck then lies with to make sure that we have good leaders. Of course, we've had that conversation before.
It doesn't matter whether we go there or not.
No, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter.
You think these companies would still invest?
Yes, they would. We already have huge companies who've invested in solar. The president was actually inspecting one such plant not very long ago.
Yes.
We already have them.
These are born
Did we
out.
go to the UK to invite them? No,
These
they
are
came
born
here.
out of this kind of negotiations. These are born out of this kind of trade fairs. The reason why we go and attend trade fairs is for that.
Trade
We
fairs.
go and attract investors. We tell investors, now come, let's have conversations.
Yes, we
You
do.
talked about, since the president started going to China, right? President Kibaki started going to China, the Sino-Africa conferences. We have seen a huge amount of investment by Chinese firms in Africa, in Kenya in particular, because we participated in those things. If we don't participate in those things, we don't know what would happen. But we can see a direct correlation between us participating in those meetings, between us going to Russia, us going to Japan, us going to China, us going to the UK. There's something that's coming out of it. You don't join that conversation, you're left out. You can't just say they would have come anyway. No.
Actually, it's not they would have come. They come. They're already
They
here.
still do
Not to
come.
the same extent.
Eric, believe me, I don't know where it is you get your information from, but these meetings are optics. The trade fairs that we have, people go to showcase what it is they can do. When we visit, we get an understanding of what else may be globally available. But those who are interested in doing business in the country come to the country. because they have an interest. They are business people. They know how they stand to benefit. They will come. Now, as to opening the country for more business, that's why they have their embassies, and they have divisions within that embassy that deal with these things. They connect the Chamber of Commerce of that country and this country. The details of how these businesses are done in the absence of all these trade fairs and all these meetings that we have. Why I'm calling it optics is because by the time the president of a country is going there, that is the visible support that is being given, saying the government supports this. And that support is embodied in the president. The president going there to say, our country, which I represent, and its people, we agree with A, B, C, D. But the details of what should be done, usually those were discussed long before and agreed upon long before.
Are those optics important?
The optics are very important, but they must be seen as that, optics.
They must be seen as optics and not then understood, and then also understood that the substance of that clearly is waning. And then look, if you want to look at UK-Africa trade, obviously in the last 10 years has been dwindling. It is not by chance or just as a by the way that these conversations are taking place now. And then also, of course, we realize that even when somebody puts in something and their self-interest overrides everything else, that doesn't mean that somebody else will not benefit. For sure, there will be benefit. But then also realizing that, folks, without us, this won't actually work. It won't actually work. Without, just like you say, without the input of Kenya, without the input of Namibia, Botswana in all of this, it won't work. And they realize that this is one place where we need to up our trade and need to up our trade negotiations because it has dwindled. And it is one place we can actually get it back and maintain our relevance in the global trade scale.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the importance of the UK government holding that conference in London is to show the local investors this is another area that you can invest in, right? So you've been focusing a lot in the EU region. Here, we've brought you these leaders from all these countries. They'll tell you what the opportunities are. They'll tell you how they can help you to set up. They'll tell you how they can help you to actually mobilize your resources and go and invest in those countries. We can fast track your investment into these new markets.
But then
That's
also,
why
but also
the
realizing
UK government
it's actually
sees
not
its importance of holding it there.
But also actually realizing that it's not for them. It's not for you. It's for them. You see?
The UK government will do it for them.
Yes, they are.
The Kenyan and the African delegation that goes there, they are going for Africa. The reason why they're saying, well, yes, so you're bringing together all the investors under one roof. I'm going to come. An example, the tourism industry, for example, every year you'll find people who are players in the tourism industry, including the Kenya Tourism Board, and individual players in the tourism industry will go to Germany annually. There's a Berlin, tourism fair. They'll go to Indaba, held in South Africa. They'll go to all these tourism fairs. And what comes out of it? They secure business. Yes, you can say that tourists will still come to the country. Tourists have been coming to the country, but they actually go to sign those deals there. You'll find a new organization that has set up, and they're looking at, all right, so what does your hotel or what does your establishment have to offer? This is what we have to offer. We have a beach tourism. We have bush tourism. We can offer you this end-to-end marketing for all your clients. They sign up deals in those fairs. The fairs are important. Now, can we say that all those fairs should be happening in one country? Not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily.
We've held them in Nairobi. We had one last year. Was it last year or 2018? Where we had a big tourism fair in Nairobi. Some people came and visited the country. It can happen here. It can happen there. You look at where is it that I'm going to get the maximum impact. And I think going to those headquarters gives us maximum impact.
Also, because they sent open the hand of negotiation, it would be very interesting to see if there was an Africa-UK summit and say, okay, look, our Africa-Europe summit. And you had, well, okay, let's just stay away from the AU because I can have a lot of, that's another whole hour conversation. But if it would be very interesting to see the kind of reception that would be granted when African leaders came together, 20 of them, and said, all right, European countries have been wanting to discuss with us for some time.
Come, ECOWAS.
Come. Tell us what it is you have to say. We want to hear. It would be very interesting to see what the reception towards something like that would be.
Well, the conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as YouTube, and also www.spicefm.co.ke. We'll be joined shortly by Shefa Okore. She'll tell us who she is and what she represents. She is the deputy party leader, or is it the deputy vice chairperson of Ukweli Party. Next, let's discuss women in leadership, especially is Kenya ready to have a woman president? Good morning.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. 96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 12 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Eric Latif, CT Muga, Nduoko, and now joined in the hot seat by Shefa Okore. Shefa is the vice chairperson of Ukweli Party. Shefa, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Put on the headphones. Yes.
I know. I think I keep forgetting how radio works.
Yes, this is how it works. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you so much for having me.
Asante for joining us.
Yes.
Of course, we'll want to know this political party that you represent. It's called Ukweli Party.
Yes.
Give us a history of Ukweli Party.
Ukweli Party's history is very long. It was a dream and an ambition for a lot of young people who didn't have a space politically to champion for power, to get power, to negotiate power, to exist in a political space that always leaves young people out. So Ukweli was a dream of a couple of people, friends of mine, who decided we're tired of speaking from the margins. We're going to organize ourselves politically, because I think that's the only thing that's always lacking when it comes to young people, and specifically women, talking about, oh my God, you need to be in leadership, but where? You need to be in leadership, but how? You need to be in leadership, but in which category, right? So the Ukweli Party was the dream that we all birthed, and it took us a while. It took us a long time. I think people imagined that it was something that we just said, oh my God, let's come together and make this fantastical, magical thing and call it a party. No. We were in court for 3 years because they couldn't get registration, because of how the system works. Because when young people now decide, hey, we want to go for political power, it's another ball game, right? Then, of course, after that, realizing that we still had to keep moving, we kept moving. So in 2017, we finally got our certificate and presented people who Kenyans have never seen before, with a fantastical track record. They changed history. I think the story of Ukweli hasn't been told well enough, because it's seen as politics, and then, these are people seeking, publicity, and clout.
Publicity and power.
Yes.
But are you not seeking publicity and clout?
Actually, it comes with the territory. So whether you seek it or not, as long as you're seeking political power, it comes, whether you want it or not. I, for one, wanted to live a very anonymous life. I wanted it to just be in the background and never be seen. But here I am.
You wanted to be in politics and you wanted to be in the background.
Yes, I was running away from leadership for a long time. That was my journey of coming to a place now where I accepted that, hey, I play a role in this joint, and the joint is Kenya. I have some things to say. There's demands I have. There are needs I need people to feel that they're not going to do. So I might as well just come forth and do what needs to be done, right? So that was it. I think changing history, and going back to what I said about changing history, is Ukweli Party was the first party that literally taught people how to raise money. What we usually don't do in politics, because our politics is very incentivized. So the politician goes, makes money from I don't know where. We can never quantify where the wealth comes from.
We can.
You really can?
Yes, it's mostly stolen. But
Fantastical. Back to my point. So you can't quantify your wealth, and then we come back and then we say, oh my God, vote for me, I'm great. I've run businesses, I've run corporations, I've run companies. But here we are with young people, right, raising money, and we would go into restaurants and someone would say, please take this 20 shillings, I add this to your campaign. You're doing this the right way, because for the first time we needed people to know that politics can and should be different, that politics must be different, that people should own politicians, that political parties should be able to take control of their candidates. So this shenanigan of now you're seeing politicians running amok, and then you ask the party, hey, so friend, you're the one who presented this person to us. Yes, we made maybe a mistake on not voting for them, but then we are stuck with them and they're doing all these horrific things illegally. What do we do? where is your responsibility as a political party before we even say, oh, but it's the people who should be responsible because they voted in this person. You know what I mean? So then where is the role of political parties? Where is the role of institutions? Where is the role of even the people who clear them to run for office? What are they doing before we talk about? Then the citizens are the ones to blame because anyway, we're Jinga Sisi.
Who's the chairman of this party?
Boniface Mwangi.
All right.
Yes.
So now we can put face to. So Boniface Mwangi was vying in Starehe in the last election.
Yes.
And when you talk about funds mobilization, is it what we saw Boniface Mwangi doing, going around the country, trying to raise money? Because that's what we saw. He was raising money via, like SMS platform and such.
Exactly.
So this is the kind of thing that you're saying. People contributed towards a campaign.
Yes.
How much was he able to raise?
I think he raised around an estimate of 10 million, which wonderfully also demonstrated that politicians can be given money and they can be accountable.
10 million directly from the people or 10 million from organizations as well?
From everybody across the place, right? So it was coming from Kenya, it was coming from Kenyans, it was coming across board, from everywhere, that we could get money and where people felt like we were doing something right. And it wasn't just him. Even Samantha Maina, who ran for Kileleshwa Ward, did the same, right? Cynthia Kihu, who also ran for MP, I think in Embakasi somewhere, also did the same. We had several other candidates doing the same thing. But you see, these are not flowery, these are not... this is the hard work of doing the right thing. It's very rare for people to want to do that. People want people standing on a podium and saying, tanga tanga and killer.
But even those in Tanga Tanga and Kilaweke started somewhere.
True, but did they start on the same field?
Yes and no. They started on what was available and they latched on to what existed.
And then what has been the outcome?
The outcome is what we see now.
They're in leadership.
And where I'm going with this is when you start something new,
Yes.
as you did, what you report as having experienced is what you should have expected. Because
we're not disregarding that.
Yes, because if essentially you are making a statement and saying we're going against the grain, we're swimming against the tide.
Absolutely.
What did you expect?
To nothing less. Because it was hard work from the beginning. I think if there was anything we were expecting was it to not at any particular point be a sane journey. And it was absolutely that. It was the most insane thing we ever did.
And what is it now?
It is a wonderful experience. Am I sitting here now giving a testimony of what it means to run for leadership?
How many candidates did your party sponsor?
13.
30.
13.
13 candidates in total in MCA and MP.
Yes.
Did you have any for governor or senator?
No.
So it was just at that level?
Yes.
MCA and MP?
Yes.
How many won?
None.
What are the lessons?
We had 3 of them come third, and then I think the rest of them came in fourth in the overall. By the end of the election, I think one of the lessons that we took in was that there's never enough time, and you can never be ready for what politics is and what that journey takes, right? Because one of the things that we saw was our candidates only having 3 months to campaign, with politicians who've been campaigning instead of working for as long as they've been in office, right? And then you're also understanding where they come from, where they have no political experience. Because this is someone who says, I'm just fed up, I'm going to try this, right? So you have to give them credit of even just having that courage in a country like Kenya where everything is kind of a total mess, right? For even thinking they could bring sanity in such a murky place. And then thirdly, you understand that they're young people. So having access to even platforms to engage their voters, having access to even the conversation that they should be in is very hard because they're dismissed as, oh my God. So you belong to the young people who are just out here seeking what I said, clout, you know what I mean? So taking them seriously is also problematic. And then you understand that these are young people who are also grappling with the fact that there is political dynasty in Kenya. Our political culture is based around godfathers and godfatherism, right? So anybody else who is not in a box we can identify as either Party A or Party B, and we're very clear who owns Party A, Party B, then is just a bystander or just someone, wasting their time. But then here we are, we had all these people who are saying, but we can still have a voice in this place, right? We still have an option. We still can say something. We still can do something. And then chartering that path, because I think that path doesn't exist. And most of us who want leadership, and most of us who just want Kenya to be a country we can actually breathe, and feel seen and heard, have to understand that we are chartering a new path. And that comes with everything else. So I think one of the biggest lessons is just seeing that young people are here and they're courageous enough to just go against the insanity of this country and say, no, we still need normalcy. We still need better.
Well, of course, we'll ask you whether this is the first time that we're seeing young people or people with a different voice or people who believe that they are championing a different path for the country, whether it's the first time that we're seeing the emergence of this, whether you've seen it before, towards success, and the lessons that you've learned out of this. So you came out, yes, you had all these voices and you were speaking a different language, and yet people didn't seem to resonate. So
what was this different language that you're speaking?
First, it's just playing the politics of people, where people get to own you and people get to be the ones who determine where you go, how you become, what you end up being. I think that's very different with the politics that's already been cast on stone. So you know you're either conforming or you're out. That's one thing that I think is very important, because someone like me, speaking personally from just my own experience in various spaces of leadership and speaking as someone who represents a party on executive leadership, understanding that a young woman of myself, of who's not married, who doesn't have a child, who is seen as someone who cannot be controlled or tethered, is a problem in a country where patriarchy runs politics. Because people will say, my God, when she goes and runs things to the ground, which man do we talk to tone her down? You see what I mean? Exactly. Because that's the thing. So understanding that even me being here, engaging in a political discourse that's different. Overtly male, is very different.
We have in the studio the hot seat development strategy advisor, Shafa Okore. She's also the vice chairperson of the Ukweli Party. The conversation continues. Of course, we're coming up to 9 o'clock. We'll take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we come back. We'll be asking about Ukweli Party, the lessons that they learned in the last election, and what their plans are for the future. Plus, woman president in Kenya. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Let's see how it looks a little bit different now. The southern bypass spilling all the way down onto Mombasa Road, unfortunately. Not happening today, folks. The rain is not helping matters. There's a few showers noticed in certain parts of the city. Onto Likoni Road also, we have some problems there. So there's traffic all around, regardless of where you want to look at it at. I know it's going to open up a little bit, maybe when the roads get a little bit drier. People are being a little bit patient, which is good, so we don't have any accidents that will then become unfortunate things. All right, Red Hill Road seems to be of particular problems this morning. A lot of traffic there. Folks have been there for about an hour or more. Hopefully that'll open up in a short while. Anything that you need to see open up, or if you have an alternative, please do let us know. Spice FM KE is where you can reach us on Twitter or call us on 0719012600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Watch the conversation on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and what's the other one? Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, as well as our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. City, what do you call Instagram?
Erasmus.
Erasmus, that one. On the hot seat this morning is a development strategy advisor and vice chairperson of the Kweli Party, Shefa Okore. Well, yes, so you got yourself registered in 2017. You sponsored 13 candidates for positions of member of the county assembly and member of the national assembly. And of course, you're telling us the experiences that you learned out of this. And you're saying this is a young party. But now the leader of this party is Boniface Mwangi. He is known to be very vocal. He's known to stand up
Not
and speak.
very, extremely.
Extremely. Stand up and speak truth to power.
Yes.
Or refuse to give way to power. Right? On the roads. When he's confronted by a siren and security officers are telling him, just give way. Like Sitoki. Well, we see that, right? At the same time, we have heard accusations from, of course, various political quarters that, when you look at these people, these young people, these are now the new people who are getting money from, other international quarters to come and run civil society in this country. So when I was asking who financed, who was financing your campaigns, you said that there are people who gave you money directly as individuals. How many of them were non-Kenyans?
Wow, then that means you have to go back to the books and check, because you're receiving money
Roughly
through M-Pesa. No, because what you want me to answer is a direct question, and I want to give
At
it a
least two
direct
questions
answer.
in one. Did you
Yes.
get funding, foreign funding? That's what you're being asked.
Foreign funding means we are getting it from a specific place, right?
It's outside the country and not within the continent. Because
No, that's not a context within that which sits.
we actually don't
Foreign
consider
funding means that you're getting funding from a specific organization or a specific entity that's giving you money as Ukweli Party.
Answer that question.
Which we didn't get.
Okay.
Right. We were being given money and we were being sent money by individuals in the diaspora. People who are friends of us, people who've been friends of the party, people who are friends of the candidates who are vying, all of that, right? That was how we got our funding. So it wasn't a specific, because when you say foreign funding, I now wear my development hat and I look at it from a place of, were we getting it from a place like
A certain
XY?
organization?
No, it wasn't. Because organizations are very wary, and you know that. Organizations say, especially the non-profit ones, say, you're very partisan.
Yes,
We will support an event you're doing, but not a party. See
but
what I mean?
there are political entities
Yes, that could
fund such functions and
Yes.
fund parties as well.
Yes.
Maybe those
So
are the
no.
ones. No.
No.
Okay.
No, we did not.
Okay.
What was the next question?
It was
It was I who actually
Had
sort of like grafted my question into his.
Okay.
Yes.
You
but-
coupled it.
Yeah, good word that. Good word. Good word. Coupled.
development
Excellent.
communications.
Coupled. This is very good. Like that word. I'm going to write it down. Coupled.
You're welcome.
Yes. Now, when you say that you're prepared for the struggle and the long haul, what do you mean?
I mean, we understand that the journey of changing Kenya and changing political culture, changing leadership, what leadership has been, I think everybody knows what bad leadership is. And every time you ask people, what type of leader do you want? They will say, what we don't want, instead of what we actually do want. Because it's easier, and it's been the thing we've experienced for decades, of what bad leadership is, of what a leadership that has no representation looks like, or what a leadership that's not accountable look like. So our long haul strategy is to be able to first make people understand that this is not an event. This is not a one thing that we take a shot at and be like, well, that was
We
great.
tried.
We gave you 13 people, you rejected them. So here we are, we are hanging our hats and saying thank you and adios. No. It's understanding that leadership in and of itself, like everything else that requires behavioral change, because political culture in Kenya requires behavioral change, is long term. And it is something that needs consistency in how it's communicated, in how it's morphed, how it's sculpted going forward. It's in the communication, it's in the language that is used, because political language in Kenya is very violent. It's very abrasive, it's very abusive, it's very, you are not my mother, I don't know you are sister, this and that. So demonstrating that takes a while. And demonstrating that means that a lot more people have to be able to start unlearning the culture that we have inherited, where we think that leaders are people who just exist in this glass house that we are supposed to watch and be amazed by, and not people who are supposed to serve us, and people who are reachable, and people who we can actually say, my God, please address this thing and figure out how you're addressing it. That is what we want to do. So change the culture inherently so that we can move better and we can present people better.
These minority voices that you represent,
Yes.
this is not the first time. We saw Safina Party, the Kenya National Congress of Anyona. You saw even in the Charity Ngilu campaign of 97. This, it has been attempted before. And
Yes.
what do we see? We see those people just saying, all right, so this is the direction that Kenyans really want to go. So we join the voice of the people.
Yeah.
When Jim Orengo has tried to be a president and then he's realized, okay, so let me just come back and join our main political party. Have you sought lessons from what has been tried and tested before?
Yes.
And to understand what didn't work and why it didn't work?
Yes. I think most importantly is that people don't link what has happened before to what is happening now. So without people like Charity Ngilus and the Martha Karuas and the Orengos and the Nyonas and even Raila Odinga, right? Without them, and I see you smiling, without them being and doing what they did, we wouldn't do what we are doing. Because what happens, and that goes back to what I was saying about this is a journey and it's not a destination, and that someone will plant a seed. So a seed of possibility, a seed of reimagining leadership. Ngilu planted a seed of reimagining what it would mean for a female to run for president of Kenya. Martha Karua took that forward, ran for the presidency. All these other people you're talking about have always spoken for the people. What happens is, at the end of the day, people are people, right? And then we burden one person with the responsibility of overhauling an entire system. Because what the problem is a system. It's something that even me as Shefa Okore, if I went in saying, oh my God, I'm going to save everything and fight everyone and do whatever, it's not a one-woman solo thing. It's not. That's why we have to prepare people for what leadership is when it changes. And it can't be one person. The people who came before have flaws. They always have had. But what they did that moved conversations forward was make people like us look back and be like, oh my God, at a time when we couldn't even speak, there was someone speaking. During multi-party struggles, you know, when we were just trying to figure out, oh my God, do we even need a single party or do we need other parties? Even that alone has led to what Ukweli has become, because Ukweli is only possible because there are people who fought for a multi-party state.
The challenge I see here is, the people, the constituents that you seek to get support from.
Yes.
Because of looking at all this, we see it's just the same. They're just trying to use a different language. In the end, we'll have Muturi Kigano being a Jubilee MP 10 years from now.
Yeah.
A couple of years back, he was Safina leader, Paul Moite the same. And they're like, yeah. You're just seeking relevance, and then you'll join the big party, and then you'll go to parliament and become like the rest of them.
Actually, even more so, I'm having difficulties determining whether this is a political party or an NGO that deals with civil society work.
Why?
Well, the rhetoric and the explanations is very civil society.
Okay.
Because civil society in this country are the ones who are associated strongly with the sort of change that you're talking about.
Okay.
Political parties are associated with manifestos which never work.
Okay.
Okay? Now, civil society, lovely talk. When you listen to it, it's beautiful. It's rhythmic. The lyrics are wonderful.
Yeah.
All the lack is the music to accompany it.
Okay.
Ukweli sounding like that.
Okay.
How is Ukweli different?
Where's the beat?
No, Ukweli only sounds like that because we are imagining that politics can actually sound and be different. And that's the thing, where we are stuck at thinking that political parties only have manifestos that are never implemented, which I agree. To a very large extent, I agree. We had manifestos as well, which you never got a chance to implement, which is fine. I think that was part of the journey. The reason why right now we are in a place where
must you be
everybody
elected to implement them?
Not really. The thing is also expecting that people who don't have utmost power to do the things that the people who are in power fail to do is a misplaced thing. Where someone like, for example, Boniface Mwangi, because he becomes the easier target, like you said, he's a more visible, vocal human, right? So then people still asking him to fix Starehe when he offered himself for leadership for Starehe and he didn't go through. The most he can do, because he's also limited. The things I would love to do for this country, I cannot do because I don't have access to those resources. I don't have access to those spaces. And that's just the truth of the matter. That's why you elect people. The most we can do. So if I'm to finish, so the most we can do as people who are running a political organization that really is so different, because we will speak very unbelievable things, because that's where we have to be. Imagining a new leadership, imagining what politics can be and what politics can feel like, cannot be something that can be easily seen by the eye, cannot be something that matches what political parties are saying and doing now. It just cannot be. So yes, it might sound very utopia. And yes, it might sound very out of reach, our flowers, and it just needs a candy floss. But you know what happens is, at this very state in this country, Kenyans just lack someone to give them hope. And hope is sometimes very unrealistic, because you can be very hopeful in a very dire situation. So even having people who are constantly having an engagement about the country that is very vigorous enough to make someone feel like, I should contribute, I should be part of this. How many people actually contribute to political parties? We had people contributing to our party, ordinary Kenyans, even in traffic. Someone would knock down the window of the car, you roll it down, and they're like, hey, munafanya kazi mzuri, asanteni, take 50 shillings. That is not something you can just do by doing the same thing that everybody else has done.
So if this was the case and you see this kind of support that's coming through just from random individuals, then how, I mean, because for us to really understand then and to be able to get towards solutions, why then did we not see that translate to where somebody puts now their vote down on the ballot?
So because one, understand where the country was in 2017 and understand how polarizing Kenyan politics is. Right, where you are a good candidate, and you've seen this with people. It's not even Ukweli candidates. It happens everywhere, right? Where people will say, "Oh my God, Latif, you're a great person, but I don't really think you're cut out for leadership." Why? Especially political leadership, because you know leadership is also layers. It's political leadership, because one, either you're not as aggressive as they are, and by aggression we mean the typical thing that we see now. That's very disgusting. Two, you're not them tuawatu. You know, you're not the kind of person who's standing by the road and giving people money, because hell, you don't even have that money to begin with yourself. You're just presenting yourself for a position. You know, how am I supposed to even have money to give? So then understand that there are people who don't vote for you, not because they don't want you to get into a place, but because they already feel you're not going to win, right? So when you get into the psyche of the Kenyan voter, and I think people should understand the Kenyan voter, as much as we want to think they're stupid, they're not. Right? It is like this.
There you go.
They really aren't.
Validation?
No, they really aren't. The reason being, you look at from independence, right, to the Moi era, and we were led by two men who either had an iron fist, or you knew you were going to disappear, or something bad was going to happen to you, right? And then this is what everybody experienced. And that's why I say it's so important to unpack how people have experienced politics in this country. And if you're honest about it, we will know that there's certain people in the country who've experienced politics with a little more leniency, because they're closer to power. And they're closer to power in what regard? In either your name. So our person is in power, so we kind of get favors. We see this is happening even now, right? So you understand there's a part of the people who've never experienced that. They've always known that leadership is about them being the outsiders, them being seen as the hecklers, them being seen as the minority group that everybody forgets, right? So this carries on to now an era where we have Kibaki, you know what I mean? And then everybody had hope, and you're like, oh my God, finally we have someone, we're united, etc. Then it kind of went and dwindled down, you know, it happened like that, then we get heartbroken. So good analogy, look at it as a relationship. Kenyans have been in a relationship with 5 different or 6 different governments, I lose count, and all of them have broken our hearts. Because we love them and we really want them to do right, and we really hope that they do right, because they say they're going to do right? And constantly you end up in an abusive relationship. So there's extrajudicial killings, there's state plunder, there's institutional plunder, everything is collapsing. So you end up feeling heartbroken. And then here you are saying, we can actually still have great leadership. So as in relationship, a synopsis, you can still meet a good man, so who is a good leader or a good woman, who can take you to the promised land, whichever that is. If you come from a state of trauma, because Kenyans are very traumatized people when it comes to politics and leadership, you're promising them this person who they don't even understand how this happens. They are bound to say, please, we'd rather choose our thief. We'd rather choose the devil we know, because angels have come and we don't trust them. So it is the thing about preparing people mentally to want to believe that 1, we deserve good leadership, 2, we are worthy and capable, and then 3, we work to present these people, to support them, and then figure out how do institutions come and play a role in making sure these people get elected. it's hard work.
Shefa Okoro is the vice chairperson of Ukweli Party. We're talking about what the party stands for, what the lessons that they learned in the last election, and what they hope to do in future. She's talking about, changing the perception and mindset of the Kenyan voter. A tough job there you have. It's 17 minutes past 9 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Yeah.
It continues.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. .1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Join the conversation on our social media platforms at SpiceFMKE, on Facebook at SpiceFMKE, Twitter at CT Muga, at Eric Latif, at Nduoko. What's yours, Shefa?
At Schaefer.
At Shefa.
At Schaeferu. Schaefer and then double O at the end.
Okay, at Shefaru. Yes. So we're talking about Ukweli Party and the lessons that you learned, and one of the things that we want to discuss today is you've actually mentioned them. So you talked about Charity Ngilu, who had a stint at the presidency in 1997. Mm-hmm. In 2012, we had Martha Karua. Yes. When do you see the next woman candidate coming up?
As soon as even 2022.
Do you think we're ready? And when I say ready, I don't mean on the part of the woman.
The candidate.
The candidate. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this same Kenyan electorate or this same Kenyan population. Yeah. Are Kenyans ready to put a woman at that seat?
I love that you say that, because that's where my answer is going to stem from. Because the whole idea of, are people ready? I think generally voters are never ready for any change or any shift, because it's, where you're in a state, and I say this as a voter now and not someone who, runs a political party. As a voter, even if I get to see a new person, there's a hesitation that comes, because I'm wondering, you go back to default setting, and default setting is the trauma of we've had a bad relationship with terrible leaders for as long as we have been in existence as a country, right? So then you go back to that for a minute and you're like, oh my God, I really hope, right? So then the ability to push forward through that and be able to see now that we can make this person what we want them to be, that I think is a whole other conversation. And that's where the work is. So yes, are Kenyans ready for a female president? I don't think they are. And I'm going to explain why. It's because getting ready for a female president means getting the voters ready for female leadership, right? And as I said, politics is overtly male. Politics is deeply patriarchal. Politics is very masculine and very macho, right? So only the women who even the women now who are in political spaces, and I'm not talking about MPs, I'm talking about even the governors, right? And the senators. So this very high tier elected seats where women are, you will see that majority of them struggle to balance between, if I am myself, then I'm emotional, then I am weak, then I am not fighting like the men, right? Because the men have become the bar of what politics should be, of what good politics should become, of what the language of politics is, of even how politics, even the aesthetics of politics is very male. Like when you're a politician and you're a woman, your hair has to look a certain way. You have to wear a certain type of lipstick. It's very true, right?
And dresses versus pants.
You see what I mean? That's exactly it. That the aesthetics is very masculine. So you have to understand that the female politician is trying to go through all of these impediments that are very they are not visible to the male competitors, right? But they are real things that hold you back. Because the one thing you'll be asked as a female who's running for political office would be, oh, wow, as a very lovely person, why would you choose leadership? And I'm thinking, you don't ask this to men. You don't go like, oh, wow, Latif, as a very handsome man, why go into leadership? You see what I mean?
Did you hear that?
You see? Why would you?
Why would I go for leadership?
Yes.
I'll remember this phrase.
See? So that's why I said even how we use language, even how we engage in questioning or even thinking around these things have to change. So we have to prepare the voter, and it's important because one, they are the people who have to be ready to start seeing that this is something that they can do, you know, because you can't change a country without people.
What are you doing
If
to
we
change
could.
the voter?
Having conversations that are very consistent, engaging people.
What's the content of your conversation?
So one content of the conversation is first unpacking the culture of politics in Kenya. And I've said it now, I think, so many times. And unpacking that means, one, we are going back into where we have compromised people. And we do this specifically in very specific areas because people are also very different. And how they engage in political conversations is also very different. So starting to teach them on what Kenya has been, what it has been built on, what are the things that should stand out and they should be cautious about when people speak about them, when people either ignore them or when people try to use them to weaponize a certain thing over another, right? So for example, we will use tribe, and we weaponize tribe when we go into political campaigns or into elections. So even the weaponization of politics, so making the voter aware of what that is, because a lot of people don't know. People just know when we get closer, I start to dislike you. Because either your name, my name, you know, your sister, your wife, me, my relatives, we suddenly realize we are different. But then in 5 years, you are meant to believe that we are not.
I'm not
right?
hearing like you're answering CT's question.
So I'm going back to my content.
The specifics.
Yes. So one, we start unpacking what political culture has been, the negative of that, and why we are here, why
You're
we're
assuming the electorate don't understand it.
No, I'm not assuming they don't. What I'm making you understand is they know the wrong things, right? They know the wrong things. And you will have this conversation with people and they will tell you distorted parts of Kenyan history that even you are shocked that there are parts of this country where we are taught that there are certain tribes that were enemies, there are certain tribes that were not enemies, and that there are people who came before other people, right? And then you start wondering if this is what these people know, then that's why they do what they do. That's why I said the Kenyan voter is not stupid, right? We have to meet them. We are very misinformed. Even I as a person, there's certain things I am getting to learn about Kenya now and how politics has played a role in it and how it has enforced that even in institutions like education and what we are taught and what we are learned, right? And then we take that and we use it at the ballot because we are thinking, oh, wow, you know, X people are our enemies anyway, you know, they don't do this or they don't understand this. So going back into that and teaching the link between the political culture that has been, the misinformation, the distorted history, and where we are. And then we move on to the next level where we are talking about the responsibility of what active citizenship means, the role that Kenyans are supposed to play after the election. Because there's this thing of come out, vote, then you're done.
Stop for a moment.
Yes.
In all this conversation, what you're saying, I like, it makes sense. Do you have any conversation as to how you can change the economic situation?
We do.
And what do you tell them?
We do.
What is this message?
I think one of the most important things is understanding that the rot within the economic space now that we are struggling with is very deep and it is structural. So first, it is not just the leadership as is now that has gotten it where it is or has completely defunct it. It is understanding that there are very many key, it's like a river, so tributaries. There are very many things that lead into it that allow it to be what it is. Case in point, youth and employment. And we'll talk about, we are creating this project for young people to get employment. But then nobody is unpacking the fact that, one, we are not just talking about employment for employment's sake. We are talking about dignity of work. And this is even defined in international status.
Do you have activities that you are involved in that could exemplify the things that you're unpacking?
We are getting activities rolling now in specific counties. We want to do that.
What sort of it's something that has been planned for and you want to now roll it out?
Yes, we are planning to roll something to start engaging our voters beyond just, because we also can't be...
The reason why I ask is, remember, my initial assertion was that you sound like civil society.
Okay.
And in the absence of any activity, whether it is helping people build a road
Okay.
whether it is helping them find a way of using the mud they have to build their school.
Okay.
These are things people can relate to directly because
Yes.
the vast majority of our people actually are poor.
Yes.
Yes, now, unless
Actually, majority of people are poor.
yes, they are poor. And not just cosmetically poor, they're genuinely dirt poor.
Yes.
Yes, now, if there aren't activities that they can relate to, because this talk, if you can't relate it to anything that's going to change
Yes.
their lives, will fall on deaf ears.
Yes. I remember last year and the year before, we were doing regular town halls, which I think sounds very elite when you say we are doing a town hall.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't sound elite.
It
It
is.
is elite.
Great. So we were in social spaces, right? And we were trying to restore them, and we realized that restoring public social spaces where people will gather. So you go like to a social hall, and you find that it's in a very dilapidated state, and then figuring out, okay, we can't just come here and talk about we want better leadership, great, etc., etc., without actually showing and demonstrating that this is what that can translate to. So that's part of the things that we were actually doing that we want to continue doing. So go to specific town halls and have these conversations, and then figure out what is it that we need for particular areas where not just our candidates were fronted, but even other places around them, and say, okay, so we are here, this is what we are doing. We want to have a conversation about ETC, but then we want to kind of reclaim these social halls and give them back to people so they can be used for what they used to be used as, where people would come, and sit and converse and sit and do artwork and sit and do like beadwork and whatever it is that they used to do in that particular area, because they're very area specific, right? And carry that forward. So then that would be multiplied into other things, Even the idea of having reclaiming walkways, was something that we were very intentional about doing. So as we talk about, it's raining now, people don't have anywhere to walk by, to walk on when they're going to work and they're struggling. But the thing about it is we are very cautious around making it seem like we are doing it for political clout, because we aren't doing it for political clout.
But you should.
We don't.
So you're doing it because it needs to be done.
It needs to be done.
But at the
now,
same
right,
time,
is it
this
possible
is a
to
place where
look
you
at
pass
this
your
as a
message.
means to an end?
Yes.
Because this is a place where where a message needs to be passed.
Yes.
And then people need to understand, okay, if this has been done for me, because that's what they resonate with,
Yes.
especially when it comes to politics. This thing that I am in dire need of has been done for me. Now, this could be then the individual then who is going to come in and solve
Yes.
a lot of the other problems that are
That's the
endemic
next
in nature.
Absolutely. That's
right?
the next level of the conversation. Because if you outrightly go out and say, oh, wow, we are reclaiming XYZ, or maybe we are refurbishing this building that we're in specifically, right? And we are doing it as this, and the undertones of politics in Kenya. Everybody knows you want something, But then if you come at it from a very human perspective of, even I don't have a place to walk. And then when they see this has been done and now it's benefiting them, so we can have a conversation about, great, so we did this and we can do much more. That's why we need everybody to come on board and help us do all
You're
this
getting
X
me
much
hooked
more.
into the kind
Right.
of situation that I am already in.
Which is?
Which is that I expect my leader to come and do something. It's a handout. It's either a handout, they're building a school for me, they're building
So
a
that I
road
can
for
vote
me.
for them?
So that I can vote for them.
And that's, and
Whether you're
remember,
telling me to vote for you now or you
Yeah.
come back later. Right now, there are people who are sponsoring football tournaments
Yes.
across the country.
Yes.
The youth come together and sponsoring a football tournament. No. I'm
And
not.
they
I'm
give
not doing this
footballs.
for campaigns.
Yes.
Of course, 2022, they'll come back and be like, you remember that football tournament? So this is the time for payback. Let's have a conversation now. If you just do it that way, that, you come and rehabilitate walkways, you come and rehabilitate social halls and go away, and then you'll come back to me in 2022 and tell me you want to have a conversation, I'll expect another handout. At that point,
Yes.
my current need now, mtoto wangu hajaenda shule.
Yeah.
So Shefa, are you
or
guys...
someone has died and
or someone has died, we need to
do something.
transform.
We need yeah.
Actually, Eric, you've got
Yeah.
to the heart of
Yeah.
the matter,
Yeah.
because if you begin by asking, because what do these people actually need?
Yes.
And your solutions seem to be centered around urban areas. In the rural areas, you don't have walkways, you just have roads and paths.
Yes.
If you were to ask, for instance, what do they need
Yes.
and how can we address it?
Yes.
Not what do we think they need. That pathway is the least of their concern, if you ask me.
But that pathway is not directly what we do, because people we assume.
I've understood what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm simply saying that if you don't start by finding out what these people need and want, because I haven't heard you, I've been listening, I haven't heard you say that. I've heard you say what you plan to do, what you are doing, what you're hoping to do.
You know, even what we are doing it because we've had these town halls that I keep telling you.
It's informed by the people.
Yes, that's why remember when I said that we're having consistent conversations.
You're a good politician.
No. I'm not even, which I also take. But I said very categorically. No. I said very categorically that we have consistent conversations with people. When we have conversations, these are the things that come out of our conversations.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's first take a break and look at what's happening on the roads. Conversation continues.
I did.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Right, there's so much traffic on Langata Road this morning that even the VIP motorcade that usually goes on the wrong side of the road is stuck in traffic with everybody else today. And so nobody is moving regardless of who you are. Hopefully that situation can be sorted out as you try to approach the T-Mall roundabout this morning and try to either get to Bagadi Way or then get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and get into town. So that's what's happening there. Mombasa Road seems to be staving off just a little bit. Of course, about an hour out of traffic hour. Let's see what happens with that. But if you're not stuck anymore, here we are. Of course, we have reports coming out of Kisumu along Oboti Road all the way to the airport that we have traffic police demanding bribes for some reason this morning, and that's slowing down traffic. There we have the reason for traffic today, and that's why that's happening there. If you find an alternate route, I know you wouldn't find an alternate route in Kisumu at that point, but Spice FM KE on Twitter, 0719-012-600 is the number to call. At least we've kept people moving a little bit by now. Let's keep it moving, folks.
Spice FM, Nakuru. 96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation is continuing on social media platforms. Paul Achar says on Twitter, great conversation. It would be great for the Ukweli Party vice chairperson to explain more of how they can or intend to move from merely idealism to more pragmatic ideas, especially their first electoral participation.
Yes, I've also seen it. I think it's a fantastic question. I think one of the things we're doing now is trying to open more party offices because we want to be as nearer to the people as possible. I think that is very much what we owe the people. So having a decentralized party, because we have been in Nairobi, and that has been a thing of, we didn't like being in Nairobi, but you also look at the time when we got our registration and everything being a deadline by then, because it was 2017 in January, we needed to present people by March, these people need to be campaigning, people are voting in like 2 or 3 months later. So then now, having got our house in order, which we still continue to do, one is very intentionally planning to have more Ukweli Party offices where, in several counties and in even wards, so as closer to the people as possible. Two, continuing with these conversations because I want, and I believe every Kenyan deserves that, I want to hear what's happening in specific areas of this country. Because out of the bubble of just Nairobi is not Kenya, you want to know what's happening.
Outside Nairobi.
Yes, you want to know what's happening there, what the needs are there, and what can be done in these particular places. And one of the things that we're also very intentional about doing is figuring out how to engage a voter who's really disgruntled, who's here wanting this wonderful leadership that is very utopia sounding now. But then how do we make them see and how do we engage them in more pragmatic things? So being involved in some of the activities that we plan to do, being involved beyond just, come and register and be part of the Ukweli Party. But these are the things that you now get to do and these are the things that you now help us be able to build. Because one thing that Ukweli Party did, even when we were registering, was being very clear that our policies, our ideals, everything we stand for has to be led by people around us. We want to be as people-owned as we can, that people get to say, please, I really don't, you're my vice chair, that person is my chair, etc., but I don't agree with what you said. This doesn't sound like the conversation we've been
We've
having,
been having.
right? Like we want that level of accountability.
So
I
how
think
many people own this party?
right now, I think we have, and I'm estimating very roughly, so pardon me. I think we have around, is it 50? We have 50K people that I can account for. But then we
So
want
50,000
more
people registered as members.
Yes.
And these are the ones that contribute to the activities of the party?
Yes and no. The people who are registered, of course, contributed. And then we had people who just meet us, like I said, in traffic, in restaurants, people who know you and be like, oh, Shefa, now you're part of this party and you're trying to do this thing. We'll send you money and then it goes to the party directly. So those are people. So I wouldn't say that it was just Ukweli party people, right, who were. Because I also know that even the Kenyans in the diaspora and even our friends who are not Kenyans in the diaspora who are contributing to this thing are not necessarily registered. So I think there's a lot more that we need to kind of harness.
So just
to
like
be able
other
to
political
know.
parties, you have supporters but not members, but you have 50,000 members.
Yes.
How
So
many,
we're hoping.
how
we're
many
hoping to
members
have
do you
more.
hope to have before you have your first election?
As much as we can.
Let me say
As much
this.
as we can.
What I hear you saying is, you are everything that you're doing is you want to change the rules by which this game is played, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So in the next 5 years, just tell me 5 practical things that you plan to do to change these rules.
One, I think one of the things that's very important for us is dignity for people. So dignity in regards to service provision. And that is dignity applied across every area that we get to engage. So one of the key things is education, right? So working very intently around figuring out, does CBC work? Is the rollout too fast? What role can we play to hasten it? What does it need to move forward? What are the investments we need to do? Do we need more people? Do we need more money? Do we need more time? Right? So education, I think, is very important. And then also education that is not just in school education, but also the education that happens outside, right? Because there's that part missing, where we used to have a very vigorous culture, where even our art, and we see that, and we keep complaining that the education has been lacking the art.
I'll reduce
so
the
that.
examples
And
to
then
3. Forget the 5. 3. That's 1. 2.
So then 2, I think health is a problem in this country, and people have been complaining about health. So figuring out how to work with the health practitioners, figuring out how to kind of just clean up the leadership within that space. Who are the people who should be playing within the health spectrum? How do we make health affordable to the majority of Kenyans who are in need of health? So we don't privatize public institutions and make it unaffordable for people. So health is very important. And then number 3, I think the rule of law. I think if anything, the rule of law, and we'll go back to the very chapter that we keep ignoring, which is chapter 6, because chapter 6 stated very well what the qualities of our leaders should be, what we should expect, how they should be held accountable, because chapter 6 now leads you outwards into institutions that help you implement this. So if you say a leader should be accountable, there's an institution that should help you keep a leader accountable, right? Is it judges? Is it the courts? Is it the law that is weak? What's happening, right? Then chapter 6 also leads you to a broader accountability spectrum where we're talking about public participation. How do we get to strengthen public participation forums where people come and they speak and they say, we need this in our area, we need that in this area, we don't need this. But that same thing they say they don't need is the one that's being implemented. So how do we strengthen accountability structures that can help us get leaders who are accountable, that can help us have citizens who are not afraid to actually say, this is what we need? Because we do know Kenya is a country where you say what you want and sometimes it's problematic. So 3 things, rule of law, health and
none
education.
of them sounds like changing the game. Those things that you've said, Jubilee would say the same thing. ODM would say the same thing. Wiper would say the same thing.
But the only thing we don't have is a chance to do it, right? I think also that is a thing
But
where
these
we see.
chances, you assume they are given to people?
No. If they were given to people,
For you to be able to
if they were,
convince people
let me
in
just answer that.
2022.
If they were given to people, why would we even create a political party? Why wouldn't I just speak this fantastical English and preach this wonderful gospel
And
and
get
not
the
wait and not even get the votes and wait to be told, I have selected you
Come
for a
along.
thing. You
Right.
see what I mean? We could have done that. We could have taken an easier route and just sit by the periphery and constantly castigate. Haven't we seen these people in Kenya who constantly castigate and then
So
they're
you're
called into
saying-
the circle?
You're saying you don't have the opportunity to do these things that you're saying.
We don't have even the
ODM
resources.
does not have the opportunity. Wiper does not
ODM,
have. Only,
no.
Only
That's a
Jubilee.
lie. We are comparing apples and oranges.
Only Jubilee
We are,
has
we
the
are comparing
opportunity.
apples and oranges. ODM might not have the direct, right? The direct ability to do all these things. But ODM as a party have people who they've had elected in power in various political institutions. They have had people nominated into political institutions who should do their work. It's very different from asking me, someone who's literally trying to do the same thing that someone who already has a position is failing at doing. I don't have the same resources.
It comes to the very end.
I think it's prudent then to also look at how they got into those positions in the first place,
Exactly.
because it was not handed to them
Yes.
either on a silver platter.
Yes.
Right? Now, of course, asking the question, then what did they do with the opportunity
Yes.
when it had now been presented to them when they were in the position?
Yes.
All right? So, it's obviously something that you're going to have to fight tooth and nail
Which we are doing.
for. So now, of course, then begs the question, then what would you do? Really?
Actually,
what would
Even
you
before
do?
we get there, you've got to convince me, because these people have convinced me the same before. They've come and told me the same thing. I gave them the opportunity. They have wasted that opportunity.
Yeah.
And even
And
as
you're
you
telling
then
me that
now-
Shefa
no.
is going to be
So-
different.
No. So then the question would be, can I answer with the question?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. So the question would be, why would you punish me for the mistake of someone else?
Because I've been punished
Actually-
twice before.
So then now you're
Once beaten,
so now
twice shy.
so now you're you're literally doing the same thing I did, where Kenyans have been traumatized, and then we believe that everybody comes into this space, wants the same thing, wants to do the same thing, and turn out to be like everybody else, which would lead us to now discussing even the young people whom we have, because the last election we had very many young people elected into office, right?
Yes.
Many of them have turned up and now doing the same thing. Like I said, the burden of changing a system cannot be about one person. That doesn't still negate them from the responsibility of at least try something. See what I mean? But what it means is it makes people feel like every other young person is going to be the same, which is a false thing, which would mean, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because we have to believe that young people are not a monolith, that we are different. And even though the political culture wants us to believe that we are and that we all can do the same thing, a good example, Ken Okoth. Why was Ken Okoth different? In the midst of an array of people who are not performing, why is Kivutha different? Right? And those are examples that we can learn from. I know there are other cases as well that probably we don't know because we don't get to hear them and we are not everywhere, right? But there are people who are trying within the system. But the focus is always on the majority who fail. So then it becomes, oh my God, Lati failed, you failed, Shefa is failing. So now nobody else given
No,
opportunity.
Shefa wants to come and tell me the same story. Why should I trust
No.
Shefa?
No.
That's where the problem is.
And that's why I said
and I think
we
the
have
question
to
that
prepare
CT was asking you is between now and the next election,
Yes.
what do you want to do that will convince CT to give you the vote?
I think between now and the next
Without
election.
just talking and saying, we'd like to see education, health.
No,
we'd
one
like to
one
see
thing I want
rule
him
of
to
law.
do. One thing I want you to do, so that it's not just me talking. Is first I want you to come to our meeting, right? I want you to meet our people. I want you to sit down with our people, and I want us to have a constructive conversation around. This is why I feel I can't belong to this thing. And then we engage on a solution finding path
I
other
hear
than breaking it down. Because
I
that's what
hear
we are
you.
doing. We invite people, come, we sit, we discuss, we see.
What I hear you saying is you want me to give you free consultancy.
No, that's not what I said. But also if you want to. But still then again, that stands. One thing I want you to do is come and sit down and have conversations.
engage.
And engage. Because there's so much work, right?
You know
There's
what?
so much work.
What I'm actually getting to is this. This arena you've entered has rules that have been galvanized into the system over a long period of time.
That's what I said, the culture.
Yes, you say it, but from your talk, I don't think you fully appreciate what it actually is and how difficult it is to actually change it the way you suggest it can be changed.
Okay.
I'm going to give you an example.
Yes.
We talk about extrajudicial killing. Are you aware that when you think of these, you don't think of Mungiki or say that's about Liberation Front? The public were very much in support of these people being killed.
Yeah.
But it's extrajudicial killing.
But you see, that's what I said. Weaponization. There are certain things that are weaponized in this country.
There's somewhere I'm going with this. When you're a politician and you want to wear a politician's hat, okay? Even if it's a politician's hat of change,
Yes.
you must be seen to understand what is actually happening. Not just someone who wants to advocate for change.
Yes.
And be very aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
everything along the way.
You can have your town hall meetings, but it must reflect in the things that you say. I argued and told you most of your meetings seem to take place in the rural area, in the urban centers.
Yeah.
One has to start somewhere. I agree.
Yes.
But if you're talking about the greatest impact it's usually in the place with the greatest needs.
That's true.
Okay?
That's true.
That none of your people got elected doesn't really matter. Not really.
Yeah.
I was comparing you to the Green parties. When they started, they were considered a joke.
Yeah.
72 is when we first had the first Green Party. The first ever person to be elected for a Green Party was in 1976 in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Okay? One didn't know that they'd get to a point where the Green Party would be deciding who formed the government.
True.
Okay? So it's not that this is an impossible thing, but you need to inject a huge dosage of reality into this thing, because what I am hearing now is NGO speak.
Okay.
And we know how far that goes.
Okay.
Yes.
Take a short break, 13 minutes to 10 o'clock. Good morning.
Online, mobile, and on radio. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yeah, so City is telling you about NGO speak. We are asking, what exactly are you planning to do in the next 2 or 3 years? So let's come into 2022. You had 13 candidates in the last election. How many do you hope to have in the next election?
Probably 40. And I need to give context. We had 13 candidates who passed our criteria of being fronted by the party. We had, I think, 230 something others who applied. And because Kenyans are non-compliant, especially because political party has been seen as a vehicle where you can buy a ticket and just be, and just go. So as very basic things, just give us a certificate of clearance, just have a letter from, whatever institution saying you've not been in charge of corruption or whatever. And people didn't want to. So that's how we cut it down to 13. So I think that's in very important context to bring in. In 2022, hopefully we have more. I'm hoping 40 just because I love 40 as a round figure.
Really?
Then we can just break them down like 5, 5, 5, 5,
Right.
5, 5. And I'm saying that because as a party leadership, even in the last election when we were fronting these 13 candidates, we were employing a mechanism where each and every candidate had to work with the leadership of the party. So even if I wasn't vying, I was working with someone who was vying. So we get the experience of what it means to vie. And like we told ourselves when we finally got into this thing, we are all in political party nursery school, right? So assuming we know things is just an outright lie. Assuming we know how this thing is going to play out even in 2 months, 3 months is an outright lie. Because if anything we know about Kenyan politics, it never turns out what you think it's going to be. So hopefully then we would have 40. And we want more. And we specifically target MCAs and MPs because we believe the people in parliament have so much power to do their oversight role well. To act as you're literally like the watchman for the people, So if you have more people there who understand what people need for you to be watching and why and which places you need to be to, it's very important. And then because they are protectors of the Constitution, this Constitution that apparently could go into a referendum. So having people who can protect that is very key and very vital because it's a beautiful, beautiful document that runs this country. We need people to protect it. MCAs is our key target as well because one and most importantly, we have devolution. We devolved power. We devolved leadership. We do not devolve the fact that this power needed to be given to the people. And the MCA is the first person you have connections with when you're talking to people, right?
Yeah.
They're the person who's supposed to know, oh my God, in this ward where I have 16,000 people, these are their needs. These are the number of elderly people I have. This is the number of children I have who are under 5. This is the number of girls I have. This is the number of XYZ. And then this can be taken forward, to now the governor. And then they have a meeting and say, I think my ward's priorities should be XYZ. We probably need more hospitals or we need more clinics in my ward because I have elderly people and children. We probably need street lights because we have more young people in the area doing businesses at night and for security. You see, like these things don't work out of a vacuum.
They understand the things at the bottom.
They understand the things. Like they're the person who you're supposed to meet next door and be like, so you, what's up? Yes, this
garbage.
Yeah, what's going on? And then they are supposed to elevate these conversations. So that's why we are really targeting MCAs and MPs, because we realize the role that they play, and they're very strategic within the decentralization of leadership that we have in Kenya.
It's a good
That
one.
is the game.
We know that you'd like to leave because you have a place to go. So Ndu is going to ask you your final question.
Wonderful.
Looking at, obviously, I mean, it goes without saying that we've talked about change and it needs to happen. And we've often said that the person who comes in that is going to now effect this change is somebody who's going to have, and across board, is going to have some kind of targeted, focused, deliberate reform agenda.
Yes.
Do you see that this is something that it can be done I mean, we're talking about primarily the younger people.
Yes.
Do you think this is something that can be done without experience?
I think yes or no. I think, and I say yes and no because I am here engaging in a political space without coming from a political background or family, but constantly learning along the way, constantly hearing, constantly knowing when to shift, when to move, when to listen to what is happening, right? So that part, yes. And then the part where it's no is because you cannot imagine that you know what you don't know. So then we still need, and I say we, meaning the young people, they still need guidance from people who are very focused and seeing that, this is where you're going. This is what might be your blind spot. Look at this. Be cautious around this. Focus on this. Engage in this.
So we don't need a clean sweep. We need a marriage of experience and
we need
injection of new ideas.
We do. We need clean people. Clean, and I mean clean in the sense of, please, you've never run for office to run for office. And then we need the people who've been here. And I think Kenya, we just rate people who've been in office as the ones who successfully got elected. Even the people who've done it and have not gone through, you need to know what the experiences was like, what they intended to do, what are these things that you can pick from them and implant in whatever it is that you're taking the country forward with. I think that. So yes, we need a marriage of these two people. So we need an intergenerational conversation on politics, but not with redundant political bigots. I don't think we need that right now. Yes.
So giving you this 1 minute to give a message to Kenyans.
Yeah.
Here is your moment to plug your party, call for recruits and everything. Go.
Thank you. So to every Kenyan listening and to the young people of this country who are the majority voters, who feel disenfranchised and feel like this country doesn't belong to them, articulate their issues, represent them, look and feel like them, I want to offer an opportunity for us to do something about that hopelessness. And because I believe that only hopeful people can fight, I want us to find that hope together. And I know it's exhausting. And I know the country takes a lot of energy from us to even discuss and leave alone even engage. But I want us to not give up because I feel like we only have this and now to do what we can do. So Kweli Party is offering itself to be a party of the people. Please come, join us, get on our website. If you want to sign up, please sign up because we need people. We literally do need people for real, like registration. We need to have people ensure that, yay, you actually are part of us.
How much is it to join your party?
It's free. Joining our party is very free. There's a link on the website. Go on that link, click, and then just have your details there. Join our party. Be part of the conversations that we're having. I cannot do anything I have said today alone. I think that needs to be very clear. Yes.
Well, you've got Boniface Mwangi with you. You have at least those are like 10 people
in
one. Right?
I need
You
1,000 Boniface Mwangis.
Very
so,
good.
I'm just saying, come forth Boniface Mwangis and Shefo Kores and every other person out there so we can do something.
Thank you very much, Shefo Kore.
You're welcome.
She is the Vice Chairperson of Ukweli Party, also a Development Strategy Advisor. Thank you for joining us. We'll be calling you again, of course, to discuss matters that are affecting the country.
Absolutely.
Now, next time you'll come and tell us about the other political parties and what you think they're doing and what they're not doing and what Ukweli Party would be doing differently if it was the one in power or in this position of authority.
I will not be available.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
The conversation continues as always on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, log on to www.spicefm.co.ke.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Well. Political parties for the youth. Excellent idea.
By the youth.
For the youth, by the youth,
For change in Kenya.
and with the youth.
Yes.
For change in Kenya.
For change in Kenya.
Good idea, though. Really good idea. Actually, it's the thing that the lady who was here mentioned, Chef Okore, was those who feel disenfranchised. That would probably be a very huge percentage of those who fall under the category of young people in this country.
Yes.
Yes, but as to whether they would actually feel that they want to be involved in the political process in this country, it is beautiful to look at. It may even seem amazing.
They want to get involved, but not as active participants, as those who consume from the goodies that come out of
I
the
said,
political
no,
process.
probably they wouldn't want to present themselves to the electorate. Being involved in the political process doesn't necessarily mean you need to want to be elected. No. There are many roles you could play.
Oh, of course. You're agitating
yes,
change.
and I think if one went to the website of this Ukweli party, one may actually see the things, the participation opportunities that they have for those who are willing. But on the other hand, when you think about it, they said it is for the youth. And I, by any stretch of any imagination, cannot possibly be considered a youth.
City, you are a youthful person. I mean, you're still young.
Let me
You cannot
It's
retire
for
and
Kenya
go
at
home.
the end of the day.
Given the very resounding and then the ho,
Choir, some choir.
That we just received.
rhythmical rather, accolade that I've received. The only thing I can tell the two of you is, please go suck a lemon.
Okay. And would you be joining this party or any other?
These are conversations to be had, and of course, the conversation continues, Abby.
Conversation continues right here on Spice FM. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning. Join us again tomorrow. We'll have a different guest, and we'll be discussing industrialization and the tea sector and value addition and what the manufacturing agenda of the Big Four needs so that it can be actualized. We'll have a fresh guest for that tomorrow. Now until 3, uninterrupted music, the likes of Boys to Men and Charles Wilson coming up next. And then 3 to 7, join Monique as she takes you home on Spice Drive. Remember, the adults in the room always come in every weekday, 7 to 10 p.m. And then they'll be there. See you again tomorrow. Good morning.